Day, June 2nd, 2026. My name is Rob Carter. Welcome to the future. #1 radio / podcast in America. I like you moving around the screen there, Isaiah.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on, brother?
Morning.
Good morning. I was just was responding to this Kirk Hilsinger character. This guy is the best. He is the best. I said, who is for, this is on social media, I said, who is for AI surveillance centers? You responded back. I sent it to you on text. You get the biggest kick out of it. Now, this guy, as I understand it, is the salesman for AI data centers for Governor Kehoe. So he's your, I say he's
on my computer.
he's your neighborhood AI salesman. It's the greatest thing in the world. And he calls me a communist and a Democrat.
Yeah, you're a puppet of the CCP, Rob.
I'm a puppet of the CCP. This guy here, he must be a really tough guy because he acts like he acts like he's he must be really tough.
Yeah,
because he's going to come face to face with me at some point, and we're going to have a little conversation in public. If you understand what I'm saying.
Oh yeah,
Kirk, I'm a little different animal, brother. You know, when you start calling me Democrats, when you call me a racist and an anti-Semite, I answer those questions directly, just so you understand. So I think he thinks that I'm playing games over here.
I know, right?
AI data centers. All right. I don't know what your game is, but if you want to have a public conversation with me, have it. But the name calling, I've always been respectful to you. I don't know who you think you are, but you better back off, jack off, if you understand.
Yeah, he's cussing people out on here.
He's on my feed calling me an agent of the CCP, which I don't take fun. That's not funny to me. I'm a public figure. He needs to back off quickly. If you understand what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
These people like this just piss me off so bad. I get so irritated and so aggravated with these people. This is a representative, I guess, of the state of Missouri. And I'm out here.
I wonder where he's going to be next in Missouri if he's going to be.
We're going to find him.
Oh, yeah. We'll find him.
Yeah. We're going to have to find Kirk and have a little conversation with him because Kirk must think he's 6'5", 300 pounds. That must be what Kirk thinks. Because Kirk, I'm a little different than the other people you try to pick on social media. I don't put up with your bullshit. I'm a little different animal. Okay. I will find you. We will have this conversation. We'll do it nose to nose if we need to, but you better shut your fat pie hole. Okay. Okay. Am I making myself clear? Because this is BS. I'm trying to have a gentleman conversation with what's going on with AI data centers because I don't like them, Kirk. I don't care about the water resources. I don't care about the noise that it makes. I care about AI surveillance of our citizens. I find it treasonous to push these things. But if you want to have a conversation with me and call me a CCP agent, say it to my face. Not on Facebook, not on my feed. And now we'll get into the show, if that's okay. Kirk Hilsinger.
1 second.
This guy here.
Hey, shut up, fatty.
Yeah, this guy here. Can you imagine? Kirk Hilsinger.
Oh, man.
I'm going to tell you, I was trying to be nice to the guy. I really was.
Right.
I was trying to be nice to him. I was trying to be gentlemanly to him. But that kind of bullshit just, and I get worked up. I say, what am I going to say? I don't like the language. But I got to tell you, when these people do this and start labeling me and start trying to diminish me, I fight back with a vengeance. Yeah. Kirk.
He said, I don't take advice from people who don't know the difference between TCP from IP, which is, IT language. And Kirk, we don't take advice from people who can't see their toes. So
Kirk is working, Kirk is getting himself into a bad situation is what Kirk is getting ready to do. You know what I mean? Because some people are, I just don't care. I don't care anymore. I think that the state of Missouri is a mess. I think that the people running the state of Missouri are crooked as F, if you understand what I'm saying, Isaiah. I think the country is going the wrong direction. And I think that me bringing attention to it and trying to bring conversation is something that all patriots should do. And Kirk Hilsinger seems to think that it's just funny to call somebody a Democrat and call him a CCP agent. I'm a public figure. It's not like he's playing around with somebody playing around with somebody on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just pisses me off. Kirk Hilsinger.
Jake sent me a funny video. I'm trying to save it. We'll see if we can.
I got to calm down. I was a little bit worked up there.
You getting worked up talking with him?
Aggravates me. I get worked up with the algorithms. I get worked up with all this stuff. It's just like everything in the country that used to be free and the things that we thought this country was all about. The more you get into media and the more how you watch it work, you see how, there was a guy that was telling me a story. He's got a Navy SEAL that was, they said that he committed suicide. All right. So this guy was on the Redacted show. Clayton Morris, who came from Fox News. He does the show called Redacted. Very popular show.
Oh, yeah.
So he was on Redacted. He sent me the information. He wants to come on the show and he wants to talk about it with me. And then He sent me a text message last night, and he said, "Here it is. Here's my, here's the redacted show where I was on it." And he responded that it was like one of the lowest rated shows. He goes, "Which must mean I'm over the target." I said, "Yeah." I said, when you start really talking about things that are actually meaningful to people, you get algorithm. There's just you can see it all over the place. It's the great. One of the best interviews we've done so far was with the guy from the USS Liberty, Pat Turney, or Phil Turney, what I call him, Phil Turney, and it's the lowest show that we have. One of the best shows that we did is one of the lowest as far as viewership because they block it and they don't allow it on people's feeds. You can't find it.
I was able to trick YouTube and get one of the clips to do well.
Clips will always do well, I think.
Yeah, I had to edit it because if we mention USS Liberty, if we mention any of those things, they start getting suppressed. But he was talking about
Kirk Hilsinger, because I'd like to send that to him directly.
Oh yeah.
Kirk Hilsinger.
It was I forgot. You distracted me. I lost my train of thought now because of that. No. I'm just thinking about this meme that Jake made. It's so funny. It's
Is that him in the Israeli outfit or whatever?
It's Kirk Hilsinger in a cheerleading outfit.
Yeah.
So saying and it says "I love data centers" on it.
This guy is too much. This guy won't have a conversation on the merits. He acts like he's a genius because he's been in an AI data center. This is his big thing. You've never been in an AI data center. I don't care if I've been in an AI data center. I'm telling you what the AI centers do.
That's what Heather Overstreet said.
And I said that to him 1,000 times, and he won't respond to it. I'm not worried about I am worried about the water and the environment and all those things, but the bigger picture is what they actually do. They surveil and they store data on us. That's the problem. Kirk, that is the problem. You are advocating for a total surveillance system of American citizens. You don't see a problem with that, Kirk? It's just unbelievable to me. I don't mind having a real conversation with people, but this guy is trying to diminish everybody who comes up against him and throws me into these conversations as though I'm an agent of the CCP. No, I know people on my page don't know who they are, but there's a lot of people on my page because of the show that have no idea what he's talking about. And because he is Mike Kehoe's lapdog, they think that he has some inside information, which is ridiculous. It's bullshit. I'm cussing way too much. Can you pray for me real fast, Isaiah, please?
Oh, Lord, we just pray that you would just bring the peace understanding.
And not get too worked up over Kirk.
Yeah, not to get too worked up over Kirk, Lord. We also pray for Kirk that you would open his eyes, Lord, and that he'd be able to see how it is affecting people's lives and that he wouldn't be blinded by greed, that the politicians wouldn't be blinded by greed as well. In Jesus' name, we pray and ask these things. Amen.
Amen. I feel better already. Thank you, Isaiah.
Okay. Absolutely.
All right. People's Lobby Missouri. People's Lobby Missouri. That is the main sponsor of the show. People's Lobby Missouri. peopleslobbymo.com. We got some generous donations yesterday. I think even you got a donation, Isaiah, for yourself.
Yes,
so
thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it very much. peopleslobbymo.com is your voice. This is the kind of energy that we try to bring to the equation because we want to have real conversations with people, but we're not going to back down when people in government or attached to government try to diminish your voice, when they try to throw shade on you because you want to have a conversation with them. We're not backing down from them. If Kirk Hilsinger wants to have a gentlemanly conversation with me publicly, I've already offered to that. I don't know what else do you want me to do, right? We want to have these conversations with people. We want to do it in a decent fashion. We don't want to be screaming and yelling at people, but we have to stop with the name calling and it's just the vitriol, the left versus right. Everybody who disagrees with you is a Democrat. Everybody who disagrees is a Chinese agent. People listen to that, and it might be 1 out of 100, but they believe it. You know what I'm saying? So why even say it? So I want to have these conversations with people. peopleslobbymo.com. peopleslobbymo.com. This is our organization. This is about taxation. This is about accountability in government. This is about creating conversation and applying pressure to the government. Doesn't matter if you're in Missouri. You could be anywhere in the country. If you listen to the show and you want to be a part of the fixing, if you want to be a part of the solution and not sit around and cry about it and complain about it, and that's your whole goal. But if you want to actually get something done, peopleslobbymo.com, peopleslobbymo.com. We need your donations. We need your help. If you can't afford the money, if you can't afford it, don't do it. If it costs you any anxiety financially, don't do it. Okay, we'll figure out a way to do it. But if you can sign up, be a part of our conversation, listen to what we have to say, maybe show up at the events, peopleslobbymo.com. Let me start with the history of these AI data centers, since I'm all worked up over it. Okay. Let's start all the way back in 1975 with Frank Church. Okay. So Frank Church, if people don't know, they did the church hearings in the mid 70s. It was learning what the CIA had available to them. Okay. So the CIA back in 1975, because this is right after the assassination, this is 12 years after the assassination of John F. Kennedy. A lot of people believed that the CIA was involved in it. Frank Church holds hearings. They were called the church hearings, and they learned about the technologies that the CIA had, the techniques that the CIA used. When he got all of that information, Frank Church, he did, I believe this is Meet the Press in 1975. And he's talking about the technologies that were available in 1975. So this is 51 years ago, talking about the technologies that they have available. And here we go with Kirk Hilsinger saying, oh, that's great. This is fantastic. Frank Church was warning us of the technologies that our government had in 1975 and what those technologies would mean if we ever had a tyrant in office. Clip number 1, Isaiah, go.
Let me follow up by asking, do you think that the CIA and military intelligence agencies and the FBI have used the emergency provisions, both in law and by emergency agency, the Federal Preparedness Agency it's called now, to have contingency plans which threaten the liberty of American citizens?
Mr. Rowan, in due course, the committee will pass judgment on those questions. I'm not going to pre-guess the committee or prematurely attempt to pass judgment on this program. But let me tell you this. In the need to develop a capacity to know what potential enemies are doing, the United States government has perfected a technological capability that enables us to monitor the messages that go through the air. These messages are between ships at sea. They could be between units, military units in the field. We have a very extensive capability of intercepting messages wherever they may be in the airwaves. Now, that is necessary and important to the United States as we look abroad at enemies or potential enemies. We must know. At the same time, that capability at any time could be turned around on the American people. And no American would have any privacy left, such is the capability to monitor everything, telephone conversations, telegrams, it doesn't matter. There would be no place to hide if this government ever became a tyranny, if a dictator ever took charge in this country. The technological capacity that the intelligence community has given the government could enable it to impose total tyranny. And there would be no way to fight back, because the most careful effort to combine together in resistance to the government, no matter how privately it was done, is within the reach of the government to know. Such is the capability of this technology. Now, why is this investigation important? I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to see this country ever go across the bridge. I know the capacity that is there to make tyranny total in America. And we must see to it that this agency and all agencies that possess this technology operate within the law and under proper supervision, so that we never cross over that abyss. That's the abyss from which there is no return.
Isaiah, that's 1975. Kirk says
We
they can't
can monitor the messages as they go around in the air there.
Now they want to surveil you with visual, but with the thing about these big AI data surveillance centers is they store the information. I don't think people are understanding what that means.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think people are really getting a full understanding of a tyrannical government that steals elections, that is aligning their military with Israel, who bombed the USS Liberty. And then that group of people, the tyrants that run the earth, are going to have total surveillance over every move that you make in your entire life. Do you think that's going to work out good for the American citizens? I mean, how in the world can anybody be advocating for these things? I just don't understand it. Because we're in a race to be China or a race to beat China? Sounds to me like we're in a race to be China.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that what Hillary Clinton said? China's the model.
Mm-hmm.
Like and share, everybody. Like and share. We're just getting started here, and it's just crazy what's going on with us. Like and share, like and share, like and share. That is the
Especially
only way.
today, talking about data centers and AI and Palantir. Those are the
Well,
people
everything we talk
who
about.
control these platforms.
Yeah, the flags on social media are elections. So if you talk about elections, if you talk about Israel, right, and if you talk about AI, then you're going to have a problem. And it's just it's
You
depressing.
guys have been doing really good at sharing, though. The numbers have been staying very consistent. We see growth, especially on
People
YouTube.
find it,
Yeah,
but it's too hard to find it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not rolling through your feed like it would normal. Like everybody else's will roll through your feed. Now people have to go out and seek it out, and it's just harder to find.
Yeah.
And
I
I get
always
that.
recommend turning on your notifications, whatever platform you whatever platform you like, whether you like Rumble, YouTube. You can go on any of those platforms and you can click the little, there's 3 dots or there's a bell there on YouTube. You can click that and turn on notifications. This morning, I got a notification. It was pretty cool. It said, the Robb Carter Show will be live in 30 minutes because I had set up the stream for YouTube. So I got a push notification that the show was going to be live in 30 minutes. So doing things like that we can get around the algorithms and we can get the message to you so you don't have to work so hard to find it. But we're working hard to push the message out there further too with the clips.
Absolutely. Look at what Kevin Pozniak said. Apparently investigating fraud in California is frowned upon. That's Nick Shirley. They actually this guy was doing investigative journalism and they passed a bill. I think they did pass it, and I know they wrote it.
The Nick Shirley Act or whatever, right?
Nick Shirley Act to keep him from investigating. Journalism is under attack in this country. If you want a truth in America right now, you are under siege from these people. That is wait a minute, Isaiah, let me find it for you.
That's the fact, Jack! That's the fact, Jack!
It is something else. And it's funny because, this is the thing that I get with people on social media. Did I send you the video? Do you have that video I sent you, Isaiah, where it shows the likes fluctuating? Did you see that?
Probably. Oh, yeah.
So I show that to my daughter, and she goes, "What is going on?" She goes, "What is that?" And I said, "This is what happens when you get into politics." So if you go on Facebook and you post something and people start to like it, so people are starting to like it fast. So if you could see right on my screen the fluctuation of the likes, it was going 10, 11, 10, 11, 10, 11, 12, 11, 10, 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. It would go up to like 12, and then it would go back down to 7 and start going up and down. It was just fluctuating between those numbers. And it just did it forever. I had to finally take it off there. I sent a picture. I had my daughter take a picture up from her phone and send it to you. I think this is what's happening, Isaiah. And I know you don't believe me, and you may know more than I do, but I have been trying to get information out from a podcast to radio back to podcast. And I'm almost certain of it, that what happens is I don't think everybody sees the same thing the way it's supposed to be. I believe that people are algorithmed out. They just slow. And my buddy Max told me that. So my buddy Max works for the Department of Defense. He's a contractor for him. And he said, "Rob, when I first started doing the podcast," I got to tell you a quick story, then we'll get into the show. And he said, when I was first doing it, I was all excited because I had thousands of people watching it on YouTube and Facebook and this, that, and the other. And he goes, "Rob, don't get excited about the numbers like that." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because they're meant to depress you. Because you have to understand that the people that are in the game against you, they don't like you. They don't like you speaking out about certain things. They don't like you talking about stolen elections. They don't like you talking about these things." He goes, "So they'll let you go for a little bit. They'll let you get excited, and then they'll draw back your numbers. They'll draw them back." I could get Max on the show to explain it. And I said, "Are you sure of that?" And he goes, "Well, it happens to everybody that's in these particular arenas. So I have to believe that this is happening." And he said, "Your numbers will eventually go down." And they did. They went from 15, 16,000 to 100 in one swoop, right down to 100.
Yeah,
it's amazing what they do. All right, let's move over to.
I was just reading I was doing research on the Nick Shirley Act. That's what I'm doing over here, and it looks like it's not passed. It advanced in the assembly, the state assembly, and so it looks like they are trying to pass it. They're not trying to hold it back or anything. So it's advancing. It looks like, which, if it's advancing, that means something, because how many bills do we see just die in committee in Missouri, right?
Absolutely.
So it's. I do got to say something. Set the record straight. Yesterday, we were talking about Heather Overstreet, and we were talking about if we didn't know she was married, or if we didn't know that, and we didn't know if it was her family or if it was her husband's family that was part of that deal. You remember with the Boonville $200,000 forgivable loan. So
Right.
I finally figured it all out and why it's been so difficult. And I'm not trying to air her dirty laundry or anything, but apparently she was married and she got divorced and now she's not married. And so that was the confusion that I had just thinking about it off the top of my head in that minute.
Okay.
And so she's not married. So that is her last name and that is her family, is the Overstreet family. And so that's her maiden name, I guess you could say. And so I confirmed all that, did a bunch of research. I looked at the CaseNet, everything. You know, I was doing all this types of research. I was texting people yesterday. And so just wanted to correct that just to make sure, because I was saying I didn't know, but I just want to make sure that everyone that we're communicating with knows that, yeah, it was her family.
She knows versions on her. I don't want to, she's a young woman.
Yeah.
I think incredibly talented. I do think she's really good at social media. I think she does a really nice job of what she's doing. I hope she does not get co-opted by the.
Well, it's just interesting that $200,000 forgivable loan for a family to move their business. And then all the articles say that everyone in the city spoke against the city giving the money to them, said that they didn't fulfill the obligation.
Really?
Yeah.
Now that I didn't know. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And so that's what piqued my curiosity, Rob, was that people were speaking out against it and the city still gave it to them. Yeah, very, very interesting. But I want to set that record straight because it is confusing. And a lot of people didn't know if she was married or not, because she doesn't say she's married, but she has this guy and she says her man. And so it was just very, very confusing.
She's pushing two things. She's pushing she's pushing for AI data centers and she's pushing for the tax reform, the tax reform.
Yeah.
Okay? They're two big Republican establishment initiatives, if you will.
That's why I thought it'd be good to bring it up right now, the data center conversation.
It'll be interesting to see if she goes out against some of these things.
Yeah.
You know, I was listening to Dan and Drew because I listen to Real Talk in the morning.
She seems reasonable in that she wants to find the truth.
Exactly. That's the way I see it. And she's becoming a darling of the Republican Party in Missouri. So let's hope that she, recognizes what's going on here. But I was listening to Dan and Drew this morning. They had Mike Kosla on. Mike Kosla, one of the questions I got to ask Mike is when has he stood up to the leadership in the Republican Party? That's what I'm curious. Has he agreed with everything that the Republican establishment in the state of Missouri has put before him, or is because I want to know where he's really pushing hard against any initiative that that they have, because it seems like he's always for the initiatives of the leadership. To me, that's the way it appears to me. So I'll have to ask him that, because one good thing about Mike is he will talk to you. He's a rep in out in I think he's O'Fallon, Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, Lake St. Louis area. But he's always willing to talk, which is a good thing. But I got to get back to the AI data centers because I want to continue on with this. Like and share, please, everybody, like and share. It's the best chance that we have. And then we'll be up everywhere, so you'll be able to see the show because it'll be up everywhere tonight. It's just not rolling through feeds. I have a feeling. What's Everett got, sir? As anyone
a book recommendation, I'm definitely going to check it out. Writing it down right now, Everett.
4 times in his life, the secret teachings of all ages. I have not. He reads a lot of books, that Everett Jones. Joneswater.com. All right, let's play this, though. This is Carl Sagan, because these are 2 clips that I've been playing for a long time. I did not know AI data centers were coming. I was unaware that AI data centers were going to be such a big deal. But now that they are, and I'm watching how they are getting pushed and shoved down the throats of Americans all across the country, it's becoming very concerning to me. And the reason it's becoming concerning is multifaceted. Number one is the environmental effect of AI data centers as it's being described by what's going on with citizens right now. So you don't have to go, well, what if it happens? It's happening now. So you have citizens all over the country talking about water contamination, noise pollution, soil pollution, you name it. They've got all kinds of problems going on with the AI data centers right now. I mean, you can look it up. You just Google it or DuckDuckGo it if you're a person who wants to know what's going on in the world. So it's already happening. And that is where the argument starts to settle. And these are the things that bother me. That is a good argument. The better argument is, what are they being used for? That's the argument that everybody should be having. Why do you want these so bad? Why does the government, who stuck needles in your arm and left your borders wide open and sold you climate change and sold you COVID, that government that takes you to war it seems like within 5 years, you're going to be in war somewhere, somehow, some way, right? So that government now wants to implement AI data centers, which are surveillance centers, in my opinion, right? All over the country and all over the world. And the question is, why? The race against China, that's the reason? Do people really believe that it's a race against China? Because it certainly seems to me if we really concentrate on what these people have done, it would tell you what they plan to do. And what they've done is try to sell you a COVID vaccine card so that you can travel. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same government told you to put a mask on your 1-year-old when you took him out to the park, a mask on a 1-year-old child. That's the same government that told you the world was coming to an end. Remember the hole in the ozone layer? Then the world was going to freeze. Then it was global climate change. Then it was global warming. Then it was global climate change. These are fraudulent. These are thieves.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that do not have your best interest at heart. They don't read the legislation that they vote on. They even tell you that. They can't read it. It's impossible to read. It's too much. They don't even read the bills that they're signing into law that you are governed by. Okay? This is a hostile government toward the American people, and we have to recognize that and either fix the system, which is what I intend to do, which is try to fix it. I don't know that we should overthrow it, Isaiah. A lot of people go, Rob, you're too timid. We should be arming ourselves. I'm not in that camp. I think that good people work within the system, and I think just like the Soviet Union fell because the political pressure from the people became overwhelming. It just became overwhelming. And it would be nice if there were people in our government that started to recognize what we're talking about, right? Because there's a lot of good people in the Missouri government. Just speak out. People are beginning to see what's going on here. How do we have laws that protect Israel in the state of Missouri? What does that got to do with me? What's that got to do with Isaiah? Nothing. If the anti-boycott laws of Israel in Missouri, as far as I'm concerned, go against your First Amendment freedom of speech. If I want to protest Israel in the state of Missouri, that means I can't do business with my own government. I have to be loyal to Israel in order to do business with the state of Missouri. Just think about the insanity of that. And I talk about it all the time because it's just not going to the top floor with people because it doesn't affect them at the moment, but it shows you what their intentions are. It shows you where their heart is at, and it ain't with you. It's not with you. The people that put masks on your face and left your borders open and gave trillions of dollars all over the world to build their network and start wars, those are people who are not looking out for you at all. They don't care at all. As George Carlin used to say, they don't care about you at all, nothing, zero. They don't care about you. You don't even come into the equation. And I believe that to be true. But Carl Sagan, to go back to AI. So we listened to Frank Church saying that the technology existed in 1975 so that if a tyrant got into office, they would have total control. There's no way to, there'd be no way to fight him. Okay. Here's Carl Sagan. What would you call Carl Sagan? I don't know how you describe Carl Sagan. He talked about science and technology. He was from Harvard. He used to do, all the shows back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the whole way up.
He's probably some type of scientist or technologist, I would imagine.
He's a scientist of some sort. Here's what Carl Sagan had to say about technology and the people that run the technology eventually running the show and how dangerous that would be. Now, when you look around Trump, who's he got around him? Before we get into what he said would be dangerous, Carl Sagan, who's around Trump? We got Musk around Trump.
Yeah.
We got Bill Gates around Trump. We got Elon Musk around Trump. We got Larry Ellison around Trump. We got Sam Altman around Trump. We have Peter Thiel around Trump. This is his circle. The tech bros have taken charge. And they're implementing it. That's the problem with the Trump philosophy, that it's all this or that. And this is the problem that I have with it. They're doing it. They're doing it. It's not hypothetical that Donald Trump wants to expose them. These are being implemented. These are being built right now. And if you try to stop it, you can't. And why can't you stop it? In my opinion, you can't stop it because the money's coming from the feds.
Yep.
The feds and the big corporations that are aligned with the feds that you think are private companies like Meta. It ain't private.
GovCorp, right?
GovCorp, exactly. Clip number 2. This is Carl Sagan. Listen to what he has to say.
Two kinds of dangers. One is what I just talked about, that we've arranged a society based on science and technology in which nobody understands anything about science and technology. And this combustible mixture of ignorance and power, sooner or later, is going to blow up in our faces. I mean, who is running the science and technology in a democracy if the people don't know anything about it? And the second reason that I'm worried about this is that science is more than a body of knowledge. It's a way of thinking, a way of skeptically interrogating the universe with a fine understanding of human fallibility. If we are not able to ask skeptical questions, to interrogate those who tell us that something is true, to be skeptical of those in authority, then we're up for grabs for the next charlatan, political or religious, who comes ambling along. It's a thing that Jefferson lay great stress on. It wasn't enough, he said, to enshrine some rights in a constitution or a Bill of Rights. The people had to be educated, and they had to practice their skepticism and their education. Otherwise, we don't run the government. The government runs us.
Can I get an amen? Seriously. I mean, it's exactly his prediction. I think that was 25, 30 years ago. Is that on the money as to what is happening?
Yes.
And Isaiah, I know we talk about it a lot because I like to stay on subjects to really get an understanding of it. What in the world is our country thinking? I mean, I have some of the most brilliant people in my life that tell me I am overreacting to AI data centers. And I'm like, how can you overact to AI data centers when the same government that wants this total surveillance power just stuck needles in your arms with a concoction they didn't even know what it was by mandate?
Yeah. I think that people get confused, Rob, because they think that me and you are, and people like us, right? I'm just saying me and you as a terminology for people who hold our same viewpoints, is that we don't want data centers because we're some type of tree huggers, and we don't want it to destroy the environment. And, you know, the water and the land and all these things, which I think that there's a case for that, because while I'm not a big environmentalist, you know what I mean? I did move to the country to get away from the city, to get away from those things. And so that's why I bought my house in St. Clair. And that's why I moved outside of the city. And so that's not what we are talking about, though. And I think that's where people miss the mark on how they're criticizing us. Is what we're talking about is how this is enabling the surveillance state, and how this will continue to enable the government to continue to surveil us at a greater and faster rate, with more information and more information stored to be searched later. And not only that, it will not just be at the federal level now, it will be at the state and local level now that the law enforcement would have access to this. And so that changes. That's what is, different about China, is that if you jaywalk, that's a crime. You're getting money taken out of your bank account because you just committed an offense, right? But the federal government's not going to come after you for jaywalking right now. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the difference, I think, that, and you can tell me if I'm wrong in saying that, but that's what I feel like I'm getting pushback a lot on is people are saying it takes this water or the sound or the electricity. And it's like, okay, hey, even if you fixed all those things, they're still not.
I think
still not the greatest thing.
Agreed. I think the argument is in the wrong position. The argument is over the environmental impact these things will have, which is completely irrelevant. I'm not saying that it's not, but the bigger picture is you're not going to have any privacy in your own country.
Yeah.
None. I mean, none. Right? Because if the only way to communicate is through your cell phone, right? The only way to work is with a computer. There are times, Isaiah, where I've had to do things and I said, well, I don't have it. And they said, we got to fill it out online. I said, well, I don't have a computer. What do I do? You can't do anything. I mean, I had that happen to me where somebody says you got to fill it out online. I said, well, I don't have a computer. I don't use a computer. So what do I do? And they're like, well, I guess you're just out of luck then. If you can't fill it out.
Went to Build-A-Bear the other day. Remember for Ivy's birthday, I was telling you, we went there. I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. Here you go. $20. Here you go. Oh, we're cashless. Sorry.
Well, that's going to happen. They do it slowly. That's the whole point. I mean, what you're describing is the point. They do everything in drips. And then you get there. Let's load up clip number 4. This is the new world we're moving into. All right. So these are now robots that are being put out into the streets.
Yeah. They'll be in Missouri too, because they're doing games in Kansas City.
Yeah. This is it Boston Dynamics who built these things? I think it is. Boston Dynamics built these AI robots. So these robots are going to walk around with facial recognition, so that if you got a warrant out because you didn't pay a speeding ticket, these robots can they'll say Rob Carter didn't pay a speeding ticket. Let's post a warrant for his arrest. I go into a database. They fill it into the computer. They have these computers walk around with facial recognition. Facial recognition comes up, sees you, bam. Now they know where you're at and they're coming to get you. Okay. You may think that's a good thing, but what if it's not a good thing? What if the people programming them don't like you? let's just say that we were to get a tyrannical government at some point. You know, they are manipulating elections. Are we aware of that yet? Did Joe Biden get 81 million votes?
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest indicator that the elections are manipulated, to me, just as you know how I'm a super logical person, and I like to just look at things in a logical framing. I know that's my problem, right? No, but if you're thinking about it logically, when the Democrats are in charge, the Republicans complain about how the elections are stolen. When the Republicans are in charge, the Democrats complain about how the elections were stolen, right? But when the party's in charge, they're like, no, the elections are perfect, right? They're great. Exactly. That's why we got here, because they're perfect.
You know, maybe on that same note, why I continue to say it's a one-party system. I got to get some of the Democrats back on the show that are actually in office. I would like to know why the Democrats are complaining about the election system. They're not running illegal elections. They're not running legal elections. If I'm the party that is not in power, if I'm the Democrats in the state of Missouri, and I look through the statutes and recognize the elections aren't being run by legal standard, then I would make noise about that. Wouldn't you? Say the Republicans they're setting up a stolen election. I would just do it politically. They don't even touch it.
Especially as a minority.
Yes.
That's you're the minority in the House and in the Senate. That's how you could that's where every news organization locally and nationally would pay attention to what you have to say.
Absolutely. Think of downtown St. Louis as saying the Republicans were stealing the elections, how much they could get out of that.
Oh my gosh.
And just say, here's the statute. Here's what they're doing. Here's what
giving Mayor Spencer time on
exactly.
TV.
Here's what Secretary Hoskins said he was going to do. They didn't do any of it. Right. This guy ran a statewide election to get rid of electronic tabulating and machines in our state as the Secretary of State, won the election on that premise, and then got nothing done because he said it had to be legislated and nobody could get the legislation done.
I will say they did try to push back on the gerrymandering map. So they did try to push back on that. Wasn't successful because I guess the Supreme Court had already ruled
manipulating elections. Who cares, Isaiah?
Yeah. The Supreme Court had already ruled that it's good to go. There's something with, I guess, Denny Hoskins that he could do before August, and that's what they were trying to get him to do. And so
he could have not certified the elections too. I asked him that when he was on the show. I said, why don't you just stand with Andrew Bailey and do a press conference and say, I can't certify these elections. They're not legal. I can't certify them. I want to certify them. I'm going to give you guys 4 months to get them legal, but right now they're not legal, so I can't certify them. And he said, Rob, I'm just not that kind of guy. I'm not a grandstander. I don't know what to say about all that. What he said. So I don't want to get on to him. I don't know. Get me off into a new topic. Let's play clip number 4 so people can see what these things are. These are live now. These are in areas of our country right now. You're going to see more of these begin to pop up nice and slow. By the way, show this and then I'll tell a story. And this is going to be fun.
Hey, cute doggy. Hey, cutie.
Hey, little buddy. Look at this. It's the world we're moving into.
Are you a criminal? Are they going to detain me? What would they do?
I think these are not to attack. It just shows you the technology. Dance.
You're not a criminal, so you're good to go.
These are the facial recognition ones. I was at Schnucks when I was in town last time. I was at Schnucks, and they have this robot that goes around. I guess it cleans the floor, maybe. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, they have those now. Yep.
And so it just goes up and down and up and down and up and down. And again, if you have the technology, you can do the same thing with the floor cleaners in Schnucks. You just have a computer in there that says, okay, AI technology. This is so and so. Do you have the clip yesterday that Isaiah sent you about, or not that that Jake sent you about the woman that said that they got it wrong and they attacked her and the police came to her home? Play a little bit of that just so people get a sense of where the world is heading if they don't stop it. And guys like Kirk Hilsinger want to sell it.
Let me give me a minute. Keep talking.
So aggravating, Isaiah. I get so frustrated with these people and just will not have a conversation with you. Will not, no matter how nice you are to them. They call you names, you ignore it over and over and over again. You want to have a conversation with these people, and they continue to attack. You're like, all right. I backed up enough. Time to move forward.
Yeah. All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
This video was at the St. Charles County committee meeting. Is that what it was? Council meeting? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think it's a St. Charles County.
So this is about the license plates readers. Right, that the license plates readers that they're starting to put out back in Missouri again. So these license plates readers, which Ike Skelton, who's running for Senate, is against. I like Ike Skelton because he's against him. He seems like a guy that's chasing freedom. This particular woman, they read her license plates, got wrong information, and they had a SWAT team show up at her door. Isn't that nice?
O'Fallon. That's what Jake said. I was like, yeah, I can see it right
here.
here.
In O'Fallon, Missouri. That's where
City
we
of O'Fallon. So this is O'Fallon City Council here.
Let's listen to what this young lady has to say. I thought this was good.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Lauren Wyan, and I am here tonight not just as a resident, but as someone's life who was turned upside down by a system that this council is being asked to expand. On May 8th, just after this council heard details outlining the proposed expansion, O'Fallon Police Department utilized technology and identified my husband as a suspect based on a vague description by police using the Flock surveillance system. The mistake led to a terrifying encounter at our house. 7 police officers swarmed our house with guns drawn, demanding us, shouting for our hands up to exit our home. It was 8 o'clock at night. We were relaxing in our home, feeling safe. And since then, that sense of safety has been since taken from us. We were treated as dangerous criminals and not like citizens. Our neighbors watched in shock, and my husband and I are still trying to process this trauma. There was no apology or acknowledgement for the harm that was caused, just an offer to do a police ride-along. Now we are here with the same police department whose inability to use existing technology correctly or common sense policing when suspects were, 1, African American and reported to have gone the opposite direction of which the police went, are requesting nearly $2 million to upgrade this very system that caused the harm without any explanation of what went wrong, how this will be fixed, or how community members like myself are going to be protected going forward. I want to ask you this. Where is the funding request in this for training officers to interpret data responsibly? Where are the protocols for preventing misinterpretation of this data? Where are the resources for residents who are terrorized in their own home by errors of this system? Technology without accountability is dangerous. Surveillance without transparency is oppressive. And mistakes, especially when involved armed officers, are not only just bugs in the system, but real life traumas that me and my husband and families like us are forced to carry.
That's good, Isaiah.
If this council is seriously considered...
And they passed it, I think, unanimously, and I'm not mistaken. Right? They passed it unanimously, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so here, I just want people to put themselves in the shoes of what could potentially happen. Where when you're dealing with computers and you're not dealing with people, this is the kind of thing that can happen, right? Let's say that you got an 8-year-old daughter.
If someone knows this lady too, we'd love to get her on the show.
Yeah, we'd love to get her on the show. So if somebody knows her, we'd love to give you get the contact out to us. Can you put our email up on there? Can you get the Robb show host? If you know this lady, I would like to have her on the show because this is the way I see it, Isaiah. And I really want people to understand where the world is heading if we don't stop it. Let's say you have an 8-year-old child in your home. 7 armed police officers come in and start screaming, "Get out, get out, get out, get your hands in the air, get your..." You could traumatize a child for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
Over a mistake. Because these surveillance cameras aren't humans. They're computers. Computers make mistakes. And you're going to be dealing with these computers at a very high level, according to Elon Musk. Elon Musk said that half the workforce is going to be gone because of AI in the next 10 years. Well, that's good news, ain't it? He said we had a 20% chance of, or 10 or 20% chance, I forget, Isaiah, of losing all of humanity in the next 10 years. The person that invented these models for AI, he said that they will have consciousness at some point. He said they'll be able to communicate because they'll be taught to think like, they won't really have it, but they'll have it because they'll be taught to think like humans. And then their survival, just like humans, will be just as important as the humans. So if the humans try to turn them off, they'll figure out a way to stay on. That's what the guy was saying. The guy that came up with the original concept. He won a Peace Prize for it. And our country just walks around like zombies and goes, oh, whatever, it's going to be great because I'm going to get Facebook faster. Isaiah.
We need more. It's not fast enough, Rob. We need more data centers so I can make my memes supporting Donald Trump. Okay?
Just unbelievable. Can we do Catherine Austin Fitts now? Catherine Austin Fitts, clip number 12. So this is Catherine Austin Fitts. Now, Catherine Austin Fitts, again, if you're a first-time listener, Catherine Austin Fitts gets it wrong. I mean, doesn't get it wrong. Gets it right every single time. There's not been one prediction that she's made. I've been checking her out for, I think, 7 years now. and I just monitor what she says. Solari report, SOLARI, Solari report. She's nailing everything. So I don't know how she's predicting the future so well, but she is. Let me give you her resume. Dillon Reed Bank in Pennsylvania. She was the first female president of Dillon Reed Bank. She worked in the first Bush administration, G.H.W. Bush, Big Daddy Bush, CIA Bush. She worked in his administration. She said that it was corrupt, started whistleblowing about the corruption, thought her life was in danger, moved to the Netherlands, started doing reports about what was going on in America. Now she's back in the United States. She lives in Tennessee, and she makes all kinds of predictions about what is happening behind the scenes. Here's what she has to say about these AI data centers.
The real vision is so psychopathic that it's very hard for people to believe that it's true. And you have to understand the people who are running the planet don't look at you and me as the same species as they. And what they want is they've now created a technological infrastructure where it's much easier and risk-free for them to have a much smaller population. So they would like to see significant depopulation, on a steady basis, which is what they've been doing since the financial coup started in America. They've been steadily lowering life expectancy and steadily lowering fertility. So these are long-term trends. But if you look at what they're doing now with closing down the straits, right, coming into planting season, it looks to me like we may be facing an intentional engineering to engineer massive famine, very significant famine, and energy lockdowns. This time it won't be COVID. It'll be, we can't afford to, we have to preserve gas for national security. So, we've seen these kinds of restrictions now in Thailand, Peru. It's coming on around the world as the straits remain closed. So, they want to reduce population, but what they want with the population that they're managing is they want to delegate the governance structure to an AI infrastructure like a social credit system that can do surveillance and institute spatial control and financial control at very, a one-by-one level. And that's why you need all these massive data centers and extraordinary satellites and surveillance systems.
Probably just, a CCP agent.
Yeah, it's probably
it's probably with the CCP.
Probably just so he can use Facebook.
Right. She's probably with CCP. You know what I mean?
She's definitely CCP.
Definitely a Democrat.
Probably paid by the Democrat.
Definitely working for China, of course. Let's get ECS Roofing in, and then we'll bring in Andy Polachek.
ECS,
baby. So if you are,
so there was some. Feel bad for people if there was, but hopefully for ECS there was some damaged roofs the other day.
Weather was nasty, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a quick storm, but definitely.
Those are the good ones. They're nice and quick and easy, and they attack and go. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. There it is. My man Larry Evans, over 30 years in construction, roofing and exteriors, roofing, siding, decks, gutters, garage doors, custom exterior metal, residential, commercial, new construction, storm damage, free licensed inspections, and he is a licensed independent adjuster. So he doesn't have to play games with you when he comes to your home. If he says you have damage to your roof that the insurance companies will take care of, he knows. The other people that knock on your door and say, oh, I see a little something going on with your gutters up there. I can get the insurance to fix that. I can get them to fix your roof. They have no idea whether they can have the insurance companies are going to take care of that. They have no idea. They're just trying to get you into their system and begin the conversation with you because they want to do business with you. This guy knows what he's talking about. Larry Evans, been in the business for a long time. Roofing, siding, decks, gutters, garage doors, custom exterior metal. He does everything. He is the contractor for the Rob Carter Show. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. You can check them out on Facebook as well. So if you want to see the work that they do, the trucks, get a feel for it. ECS Roofing and Exteriors. 314-486-3567. 314-486-3567. If you didn't write it down now. 314-486-3567. If you need a new roof, if the damage got to you or it's just old and it's time to replace that roof, ECS Roofing and Exteriors. That is our guy. And we have a new one, Isaiah. We've got a new advertiser with EXP Realty. Debbie Genus, I guess she's been a listener for quite some time, reached out to me. I'd seen her at a couple of events, and she said, Rob, I would like to do some advertising with you. We had a conversation, went and had lunch with her, got to know her just a little bit, and she passes all the tests for me, Isaiah. You and I talked about it just a little bit. I said, do we want to take on another advertiser, a realtor? And here's her resume, and this is what stuck with me. 28 years in the real estate business. She said through ups and downs and crazy turnarounds, she's been able to manage her business. She is excellent with customer service. She's responsive to people, focused on results, which really is important to me because, you got to get things done in this world. If you're going to get into business, you got to find a way to get things done. She's focused on results. She also does insurance, 14 years with the same insurance brokerage. So we're talking about a stable person, 28 years in the real estate game, 14 years with the insurance brokerage. She's stable. She's honest. She's kind. She'll work her tail off for you. You can reach her at 314-482-9205. 314-482-9205, or you can reach her online at Deborah, Debra, Deborah.Genus, Jeanis, Deborah.Genus at exprealty.com. Got it on the screen there, Isaiah. Let me read it one more time because I think I butchered that just a bit. Deborah, Debra.Genus, Jeanis at exprealty.com. She's one of us, so she's our realtor. So if you're in the need of a new home, if maybe it's a first home, we got a lot of younger listeners now, Isaiah. I think I've made a lot of the older people mad at me. I don't know why. I just disagree with the Fox News narrative, and maybe that makes, I don't know what's going on. But we got a lot of younger listeners.
How dare you question Sean Hannity?
I think our listeners have stayed with us. I think when people hear us for the first time, they think that we are, I don't know what they think, to be honest with you. It's once you start to see things.
I got some positive. I talk to younger people, though. I get a lot of good feedback from younger people.
Yeah, younger people like the show. There's no doubt about it. Because I think we're touching on the issues that are important to younger people. All right. So if you're buying a home for the first time, I'm sure my son, when he buys a home here in the not too distant future, he'll buy it from Debbie. Debbie Genus, Deborah, Debra.Genus at exprealty.com, or you can call her at 314-482-9205, 314-482-9205. Debbie Genus, welcome to the family.
She's got a property listed. She's got a property listed right now. If anyone wants to go check it out.
Where is it?
Godfrey, Illinois.
Godfrey, Illinois. Oh, that's the one thing she told me to remind everybody too. She's licensed in Missouri and Illinois. Did I write that down? Yes, I did. I just didn't read it.
Yeah, this is a great house. This is a great first home right here. $195,000. Got a garage. Looks like it's got a detached outside garage too.
I like that.
Yeah. That's what I was looking for. I got a detached garage out here, and it's like my workshop basically.
Yeah, I like it. Jones Water has one of those. We went out there, and he does dart ball. So we went out into his garage. He had the detached garage. We were playing dart ball in his garage. I kind of like the detached garage because you kind of get away from the house. You get your music out there. You get a little something going on. Your buddies want to come over, and your wife and family are going to sleep and go out to the detached garage.
Yeah. I have a fridge out there, but I don't drink, so there's nothing. So it's like
soda. You just don't.
Yeah, exactly.
GraceHauling.com. GraceHauling.com. Outstanding customer service, competitive pricing. Been around since 1998. 2, 4, 6, and 8-yard dumpsters. You'll see their trucks, their cans all over St. Charles County. And you say, well, why? Why do I see so many Grace Hauling cans and trucks? It's because he does great business, and people like doing business with Gary Schneider. Gary and Karen Schneider, I said, what do you want me to say, Gary, about your business? He said, but for the grace of God, I would not have such a thriving business. If you're a residential customer, trash, recyclables, yard waste, bulk pickups, all under the label of GraceHauling.com. 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 Residential or commercial, doesn't matter. There he is. I love that picture of him. I just looked up that picture. Such a great picture. It must have been at one of their children's weddings, I'm guessing.
Right.
Gary Schneider, GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com, GraceHauling.com. And then finally, my man, Tony Clark with Valvoline Express Care. If it's time for an oil change, you got to get out to Tony Clark. Let's put his locations up on the screen. 15 minutes from bay to on your way. No nonsense, no appointments, no sales pressure, all Valvoline branded products. He said, Rob, there's two things that people don't like when they come in to get an oil change. They don't like when it takes too long, and they don't like getting upsold. They don't like everybody coming out and saying, you need this, you need that, you need this. They said, I came in for an oil change. This is what they do. Nice, quick, efficient oil changes. They have locations in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, Highland, Illinois, Troy, Illinois, Lee May Ferry Road, Warrenton, Missouri, Mid Rivers Mall Drive, St. Peter's Parkway. Great people, big, proud supporters of this particular show. Tony Clark, Valvoline Express Care, and you can go to Valvoline-Express Care if you want to get some coupons for your next oil change or anything you got going on. Check out Valvoline-Express Care. They'll give you the locations as well. As I like to say, if I don't see that sticker in your window, we cannot be friends. All right, let's bring in Andy Polachek. Andy's been around the political scene in Missouri for a long, long time. I think he knows the game pretty well. We were talking on Saturday morning about the AI data centers and got into a long conversation about it. Center yourself, young man. Center yourself.
I will. Yeah.
Do you have a Valvoline Express Care sticker in your car, Andy? That's
Say yes, even if you don't.
I don't, but I'll tell you one thing. I like all of your advertisers. I'd love to meet your roofer. Your realtor, I could possibly help her. And then I'd love to meet your hauling guy too, because my restoration business needs all those services. And as everybody knows, in the contracting business, reputation matters and who's good matters.
Amen.
And
exactly.
Just like everything. I mean, I hate to say this, but 90% of everything is shit these days. So yeah. we need to know the good people and promote them. So I'd love to meet some of those folks, and maybe I can be an easy lead for them.
I was going to say on the 14th and 15th, I'm getting advertisers, business associates of mine, family, friends, all in a room together, so we can build the foundation and the structure of the little ecosystem of doing business and, just working with each other. It's nice to have a big network, right? I got a big network. I'm going to bring them all under one roof, and so we can start doing business together. You should come to it, Andy.
Awesome. Is there a barbecue and maybe a beer or two? Or?
I'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. You just show up. All right.
Andy, is there any way you can tilt your camera down a little bit so the chat's not on your face?
Yeah.
Thank
Sorry.
you. That's awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
I can also shut that behind me if that's better.
Oh, no, totally fine. I just didn't want the chat to be scrolling on your face.
Yeah, no worries. I'm not as accustomed to this as you guys are, but I'm happy to be here.
No, that's great.
You're looking good. You got to tell me the story, though, because you said, Rob, just get out of my way. Let me get this thing off and running. I'm going to tell this story. So you have some insight as to what's going on with the AI. And you got to tell me about this Kirk Hilsinger, dude. You told me this guy is about ready to get out. I'm about ready to have it out with him. He is just aggravating me on social media, not because he disagrees with me.
He's a jerk.
But because he's calling me a CCP agent. I don't like anti-Semitic. People call me a racist or an anti-Semite or a Chinese communist. Those things irritate me because people read that and one person might think that it's true, and I don't like that about my reputation. So he needs to be out a little bit.
Yeah, no, and I'll help you with that because I know Kirk fairly well, and I will also threaten Kirk that if he says anything about me or my business, I will sue the living shit out of him and take his house from him in South City. So, hey, Kirk, if you're listening, I'll come for you. Just so you know, dude. And I'd call you something else if I wasn't being polite. So, anyway, it's really sad that us conservatives have been divided, but some of us are self-serving, compromised, selfish, and I think don't have very good discernment. And I'll be candid. It seems like the people who have God in their life have more discernment.
Amen.
And that being said, perhaps I'm not being very charitable, which is something that's very important in my Catholic version of Christianity. But my priest and my spiritual advisor tells me that sometimes you just don't have a choice in these battles, and you should limit it. But some of these people, when they're fighting you, you don't have a choice but to fight them back. And when they stand with evil people and evil intentions, they can go to hell, and they might end up there anyway. So anyway. Give me maybe 5 minutes to lay out some bullet points. I want to put these pieces together. Catherine Austin Fitts, who you had before, your advertising mentions, and I came on here. She really does do a great job at putting pieces together and making people see things that are very complex and understand how evil the kind of globalist gang we're ruled over by are. And the fact that their tentacles get into the state of Missouri, they get into our counties, they get into the city of St. Louis. They're everywhere, right? They're in institutions, they're in religions, they are in every sort of thing you can imagine. They're probably people we sat next to and thought are our friends. And I think a lot of times these people are pawns who don't know what they're doing, and their selfishness or their lack of discernment gets them to be pawns. I'm guessing you guys, I never want to be a pawn. If I am and I find out, I'll admit I'm wrong, right? So let me go through my thing, and then maybe give me 5 minutes. I talk fast. I used to have a lot of New York friends, so it helped out.
You do the same thing.
Yeah, and then and if there's anything that isn't clear, we'll cover it. So first of all, just to give my background, because I do think it creates some credibility. I'm from Kirkwood. I grew up middle class. I got into investment banking from a state school because I worked my butt off to do it. I worked for middle market firms in LA and San Francisco. I was then in private equity. I can talk a lot about private equity, and I will, and not a lot of it's good. Although that being said, in full disclosure, I would like to have my own private equity group someday, because not all of it's bad, and you can make good money for good people. I now am an entrepreneur on my own restoration business. I got involved in politics in 2000 because I thought the election was stolen from Trump. I still
2000 or 2000?
2020. Sorry, thank you. Sorry, thanks for correcting me. Boy, that shows you when you're old.
I do it too, and then I listen back and go, "I can't believe I said that."
Yeah, thanks. So, and honestly, what I found both in the city of St. Louis, in the state of Missouri, and all the counties in Missouri is incompetence, corruption, and a form of almost stupidity and a bunch of pawns. And it seemed like a network that wanted to keep anybody from actually getting in, that actually wanted to do positive change. And that spans the gambit between Republicans and Democrats, independents. The good news is people are waking up. And when people stand against things that the people are against or for, an example, data centers, they're exposing themselves and they're flushing themselves out. So now let me get into sort of the pieces I want to put together. So remember, the World Economic Forum and all the other evil globalist institutions have said what our future looks like. We will own nothing and we will be happy about it. You can, if all the things I'm meant to say next is where you can see data centers and AI being related to that goal. Let's remember what's happened. Absurd utility bill passed last year in the Missouri legislature that allows them to charge us for future builds, which opens up a backdoor black hole to forecast anything they want to do and charge us whatever the heck they want to do. Who needs power? Data centers need power. What do they lack? Power. Oh, it seems like a connection. What do you know? Property tax hikes. And it also came out a lot last year, and people realized that they are basically fraudulently doing these property tax assessments. They're dishonestly and they're lazily doing them. And their entire goal is to take in more money, as if they don't take enough money already. So then there's the propaganda of all this. If we don't build data centers, China will. Oh, we want to be like China. Who thinks they want to be like China? Anyone who thinks China is good doesn't know what they're talking about. Then there is this national push all over the country, every state, every county, every city, it seems like, to build data centers. Why do we need so many? I'll get into more about that in a second. There's investment hype. I come from private equity. I sat in rooms where they talked about how to hype things with honestly, to get the regular middle class investors and their funds to buy into things so they could take their money, right? You all may have heard about the theory with NVIDIA, which I think is true, that them and other suppliers are using their ARs to, quote, buy from each other for money that's never going to arrive because it's not real. Wall Street is the king of hype. And that hype, you've already seen it in Internet 1.0 and Internet 2.0. It's always tech. It's always something mystical. It's always some promises that don't make sense. Since the 2000 election was stolen, many of us in Missouri have realized our elections are rigged at every level. I think they were laying the groundwork to be able to do this sort of. I think a lot of this is about a takeover because they realize people are waking up. I'll get into that more here soon. The establishment is coordinating against us to make sure good people with selfless goals cannot take over. And you saw that when they came after the grassroots, and they continue to do that. Yep. There's almost certainly secret societies that politicians of both sides belong to. You guys have covered that. Freemasons is just one example. There's all kinds of one. There's a Jewish version. There's a zillion different versions. The politicians are almost certainly in Missouri and elsewhere involved in organized crime. I will save Dave Schatz's name. And if you want to come after me, Dave, let's open up Discovery, bud, because I'd love it. Our religions, our media, our corporations, our schools, our law enforcement, and so on are infiltrated with absolute scoundrels, low integrity people supporting bad intentional goals for whatever reasons. If you're in a county in rural Missouri, sorry, buds, your counties are corrupt too. The city of St. Louis is incredibly corrupt, but your places are too. We know that data centers are resulting in crippling utility bills, destroying and polluting our water, destroying and polluting our land. Land values are collapsing around them. It's going to crap. The local and state politicians shaking their heads and refusing to hold the data center owners accountable. There's big protests about these things. Their stated goal is AI to replace the majority of our jobs. They say it. Why are we supposed to like data centers? Why are we supposed to like AI? There's no logic to that. There's signs of massive overcapacity in the data center built throughout the country. I've got a theory about why that is. We know the Zionists and the CCP, who work closely with the Mexican drug cartels, have control over a lot of the U.S. and our politics and industry. We know they're bad actors. We know they have control. Different states is different. Unfortunately, I think Missouri is pretty high. The planes that most likely were tied to the assassination of Charlie Kirk land here a lot. Candace Owens has revealed that. They are moving on a federal level to give data centers special protections. Locally, Kehoe moved to take control of the STL police. That scares me. I don't trust anything Kehoe does. I think he's a very corrupt, unethical, and immoral scoundrel who never does anything unless it benefits him. If he doesn't care about us and he wanted to control the STL police, Is it possible he wants to control them because he knows we hate the data centers and we may end up coming after them? Not making threats, just wondering. Missouri has a lot of water. Those data centers need water. We also have a lot of caves. This all kind of lines up, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you know, there's a lot of push here in the city to push data centers, and I'm going to drill down locally on that. So a few important points. In my view, and you know, our society has a lot of scoundrels in it. We have lost God, morality. We're selfish. We're prideful. We're arrogant. There's a lot of useless people. I'm sorry to say that. An immature population. Everyone wants to blame somebody else before they assume they may be responsible for something. I also want to say, don't confuse power with intelligence or morality. I worked in private equity.
Amen.
Yeah, I worked in private equity. There are a lot. I've seen a lot of these politicians. A lot of them are stupid. They're ignorant. They're lazy. They want money and they want an easy life. They don't care who they screw over to get it, and they don't care. And sometimes I think they're pawns and they're not smart enough to understand what's going on. Just because PE or Wall Street invests in something does not mean it's intelligent. In fact, you should think about and do your own research. You know, here's the other thing. We know, because I've talked to people, you all talk to people, the public, the right, the left, the independents are largely against these data centers and AI. That's a big deal. So why are they ignoring us? Why aren't they answering our questions? What do I think their goals are? I think private industry and citizens, they want us to fund the energy and the build of these data centers so the government or these large corrupt corporations or Palantir can seize them once they go bankrupt. Don't think that a private equity guy or a local developer isn't stupid and can't be led into a hype and lose a bunch of money. It's happened before. It'll happen again. Very wealthy people can be very dumb. That's my theory that the government and Palantir are going to seize them and then use them for their own bidding. I think they're going to surveil us. I think they're going to use it to control our money. I think they're going to control our beliefs, our associations. They're going to try to direct, and they've already have scoundrels in place everywhere. And then I think, you know, in the last 10 years, think about all these crazy things that have come out that have proven to be true. At this point, if you doubt these things and you don't at least consider them, I think you might be stupid. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm sorry if I'm insulting some of your audience, but
our audience is on your page, believe me.
Yeah, I figured. And anybody that wants to challenge us, though, I think maybe they might be the dumb ones, right? So why are people going along? And this leads to the Kirk Hilsingers of the world. I think they don't believe the corruption's there. Kirk was always very doubtful of election integrity and corruption. He didn't believe me. You know, I think a lot of them, unfortunately, hate Democrats, China, and Muslims more than they love their country and their own freedom. I think they're scared. I think they need validation from officials that are scoundrels. I think it's a self-esteem issue. Everybody sometimes needs validation, but I think, you know, you got to grow out of that. You got to be willing to challenge corruption and bad people and bad institutions. They may be standing to gain something. That may be appointments. Don't be surprised if Kirk gets appointment from Kehoe, right? Would you be surprised?
Not at all.
Yeah. You know, don't doubt that people who think they're good people support bad things. I've been guilty of it myself in the past. I may be right now, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit it. And then I think sometimes some of them are, like I mentioned, they're scared. I think they think the establishment is going to win, so they should just go ahead and sell their souls to it. These are the people who don't realize that crocodile eventually eats you if you feed it. It eventually eats your hand and you're dead too. They don't care about you. So STL city situation. I want to narrow down to this. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but the city has raised our water rates, has raised our, well, that's a lot of R's. They say that we need $700 million to upgrade our water. I know a Democrat who's looked into that and did research and said that's a complete lie. I know a guy who built for McCarthy, who knows everything about all the systems because he had to, who says that he's talked to lots of guys. That makes no sense whatsoever. He thinks at most it needs 30 million. The rumors are they're taking some of the money they've already charged for waters, putting it in their general fund and stealing money, which would you doubt that from the city of St. Louis? Yeah. The politicians on both sides are all in on data centers. Greater St. Louis, which is this sort of corrupt institution that works with the city of St. Louis to do what they want. The unions, the large corporations, developers, the large law firms, all people that we've found to be corrupt in our investigation since 2020, they're all in on this. Why do you want to be in the same camp with those scoundrels? So my prediction is what's going to happen is they're going to use this threat they put up of we need 700 million. We're going to keep raising your water taxes till you're bankrupt, where they keep raising our property taxes too. And then the data center guys are going to come in to be the quote unquote saviors. They're not saviors. The money isn't needed for the most part. They're not saying where it's going to go. They're not telling the truth. And on top of that, the money, most likely the money they do need, if it's true, is to help them get the water they need to build more data centers. I do not want the city of St. Louis to be a data center hotel. I do know a guy that owns a data center in the city of St. Louis, who I won't say, who I think is a good guy. And, he has a final product that does not draw all the energy, all the water, and he actually owns his own systems. So I think he's much more ethical. Not everyone in the data center world is bad. I want to be clear about that. And we do need these to some degree. I don't want to be, completely insane about this, because of course they'll use that against you. The last thing I want to say is, if you want to look at all the stuff, well, second to last thing, sorry if I'm taking all the thunder.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay.
I'm enjoying it, actually, because we share a lot of the same opinions, so go for it.
I figured. The last thing I want to say is, I think everyone should take a good hard look at Bob Clark of Clayco. Clayco formed, and I am not sure anything I'm saying is true, but there are some connections that someone should look at. Clayco formed a separate division to focus on data center builds across the country. Bob Clark is a billionaire, a former Obama fundraiser bundler. He is tied to the globalist politicians and the oligarchic structure. Festus was Bob Clark, the whole Festus situation. It's alleged through sources that I know that are very reliable that Bob Clark has material influence over Mayor Kara Spencer. Brian Williams, I believe that name's correct, who is most likely going to be the winner in St. Louis County for the executive office, works for Bob Clark. Does anything start to come together here?
Mm-hmm.
I won't say much more, but let's just say quid pro quo never died and is very popular in the St. Louis area. And let's just say some people, I'm not saying Bob Clark, but some people are known for quid pro quo to get their jobs. And that's maybe how they built their career. Last thing I want to say is they're losing. The public is against data centers. People who I would think weren't even knowledgeable about them. There's different levels of knowledge. There's sort of the super knowledgeable, the second level, third, fourth. I think down to the third right now knows these data centers are bad. I think they know they're in trouble. I think they're going to act crazier and crazier and crazier. And I think they might even use violence against us, because I think these people are desperate and there's something they need these for that either makes or breaks their career and their existence. And the last thing I want to say is, God will make them lose in the end. He destroyed the earth once before. And I'm not trying to get prophetic here, but he said he wouldn't do it again by a flood. But if he needs to hurt these scoundrels and their pawns and their puppets, he'll do it. And if we're wrong, we'll be corrected too. And I have the humility to admit that. I'm not sure a lot of our opponents in this regard, since they won't even answer questions and won't debate and just call people names, I don't know that they have that humility. I think they are just raw force, raw power, raw arrogance, And when it comes to Kirk, I supported Kirk because I didn't like the former chairman of the GOP of the city. I think Kirk has been a complete failure for the city. I think he promotes himself on radio shows more than he promotes values and what should happen. He's not changed the GOP committee. He travels down to Festus to try to argue for data centers when the city of St. Louis has endless problems he could focus on. Kirk can be mad at me all he wants. Kirk has been a failure. Sorry, I'm done.
That was good. That was good. And it's funny. Somebody said, "Who is?" I said, "Andy's just kind of a political insider." You're like all of us, right? Everybody wants, and I don't think that the person asking is necessarily in this camp, but everybody wants like this big title, like you've done. How about you just are around the political scene? You go to the events, you listen to these people talk, you understand what is happening, you join their little committees, you talk to the people, and you begin to formulate an opinion as to what is actually happening. Andy, you're a lot like me. The first time we ever talked, I thought, this guy kind of shares my same brain, because we are somebody that you must come from the corporate world at some level, right?
Oh, yeah. I know how dirty you are. Yeah, I know how dirty you are. Dealt with the lawyers. Perkins Coie was a lawyer for some of the firms I had.
There you go.
I saw the nastiness. I wanted to get out of it. It really sucks owning your own business these days. The government comes after you. Clients suck. But you know what? And it's corrupt in St. Louis. But you know what? It's worth it in the long run. And we do a good job. Sorry if I'm turning this into an advertising campaign. And we're going to keep doing it. And we're going to be successful in the long run through all the pain. So.
Amen. And then when we first talked, I said, you kind of see the world through my lens. When you've dealt with, it's hard to explain it, but when you've done, I always call them just snakes. My word for it was snakes. They're nice to your face. They say everything that you want. They pat you on the back. They tell you how great they are, but they're always looking to stab you at the first chance that they get, so they can move up one ring of the ladder on the corporate, in the corporate game.
I could have gone that way, and I chose not to, and I think you could have too, and you chose not to.
Absolutely, I chose not to do it, and I got right to the second. Well, I was the first rung in a couple places, but it was with people that recruited me into it. I didn't, step on people to get there. They were, I came in and just took over the business. I didn't work my way out. You know what I mean?
No, I totally know, and I'm not completely clean. I did things I shouldn't have done. Sometimes I thought I did them to people that deserved them, but as I got older, I decided that's not what I wanted to be. And the reality is, I remember the reason I got into business to begin with was to make money to stop the nonsense in society. And so as I got older, I found God again. I'm getting a little emotional, sorry.
Amen, baby. Come on now.
I realized that there's things that are a lot more important than money.
Yes.
And I came full circle. I still want to make money to help society and my family, future family, but at the same time, there's a lot more important things than my prestige. And, and I don't care if I go to the governor's ball. Like, I want to hang out with Kehoe and those fat idiots.
Well, they want to be your, it's funny because you do start to recognize the people that want to be around what they perceive to be power, right? They want to be around that. They want access to these people. And it really, it almost gives them their sense of worth is to be around these type of people. And I'm on the other side of it. And I think you're a little bit more like me, where if you're in power and you're doing things for the right reasons and you want to have conversations with people, open conversations in a free society, I'm all for you. I don't dismiss those people, even if I disagree with them. I like the idea of we're in America, we have different opinions. Sell it to me. You hit on the point that I was ranting and raving about this morning with Kirk, and I don't know Kirk. All I know is that what he's doing on social media needs to cease immediately, and I don't look for anybody else to do it for me.
I might disagree with you politely on that because he's exposing how big of a shithead he is. Maybe I'm sorry
Sure.
for using the wrong term, but and he's not winning. I know enough people to know that he has lost a ton of allies, and that when we had a falling out, he decided to text a lot of my friends, "What's wrong with Andy? Because I'm crazy. I'm crazy. Right. You're crazy. If you disagree with the corrupt GOP political establishment, which is full of white trash scumbags, who fake that they're Christians and lie to all of us, and some of us unfortunately still believe them. And I'm sorry to some of my baby boomer friends out there who might not be my friends anymore, but you guys need to wake up. Wake up.
Yeah, because they're burying the problem. Yeah, they're burying their own grave, right?
100%.
They're digging their own grave, I should say.
God doesn't love stubbornness if the facts are against you.
Well, and the other thing, Andy, that you hit on is the same thing. Because you have to humble yourself. When you get old enough, you start to realize you had some wicked ways when you were younger. I think you and I both went through that. We talked about that when we had dinner one night. And as I got older, I started to recognize that I had a lot of flaws in my personality. I still do, right? I'm hot tempered, and there's no doubt about that. And I got to be careful. But I started to recognize I was doing things that were for me and not for God.
Yeah.
Right. And as I began to get a little older and a little bit wiser, I started to look at things and thought, you know what? I've had everything that I could possibly want. I had the wife, the great kids, the big house, the fancy cars. I had everything that in my mind I thought meant success. But I wasn't happy. Right.
Exactly.
Lost my family over it. And I started to black hole. Yeah, it was
grabbing. And that's what those people like Leon Black, on Wall Street and whatever. And I've had run-ins with them, or at least I shouldn't say with them, but with people who know them. And they've told me about the son that commits suicide and all this stuff. And none of them are actually happy. And they have a massive hole in their life because there's no spirituality in their life and there's no greater good in their life.
That's how I see it too. That's how I see it too. And when I said, God, I'm just going to, because what I pray for every day is for God to lead me in the right direction. Because left to my own devices, I make an ass out of myself.
Totally correct. And I may still be doing so, but I'm happy to say I'm wrong. So,
Right. And I don't think that the people that I would consider adversaries of ours have that humility. They don't have the ability to say, you know what, I made a mistake. I did this wrong, Rob. I shouldn't have done that. I apologize. And then we become friends as soon as you do that. I'm like, okay, great. Now
I believe in redemption strongly. My Christianity believes in that, and I believe that everybody can be redeemed, but they have to be willing to at first admit their sins or their wrongdoings towards other people and towards society. And honestly, how about this? How about they just admit they could be wrong?
Right.
So then they're willing to have a debate with you or me or anybody and see where it goes. Because if they're not willing to have a debate, Thomas Massey, what is really going on? What is really going on? What they're doing is they're hiding behind a corrupt corporate governmental power structure, which almost everyone's a pawn in, by the way, except for, I don't know, is it the 13 families? Is it the British government? Is it the Zionists, fake Jews, whatever they are? Something doesn't add up. And I want our country free. And my one selfish consideration here is I can do better business if we're not put in this situation with insane regulatory issues, corporations that crush the little guy, institutions set up to crush us. I'm not going to go on a rant about that, but my own industry is corrupt and dirty, and I have to deal with that all the time. Insurance is corrupt and dirty. Yeah. So it's if you fix things and make them fair playing ground, I think they've suppressed a lot of talent because they've pushed people that suck to the very top and given them power. And they make us all look like idiots, and it's probably why planes are crashing and the city streets can't be clean or ran correctly, and the money's disappearing, and you get these idiots that we talk about election integrity at these city council meetings, and they don't listen and they don't care, and then they go home and eat more Doritos and get fatter.
They sleep. You have city council members that have the public coming to challenge them on things that are going on within the cities, and I've seen 2 people fall asleep in the meetings.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that before too. I know.
Can you imagine the arrogance of your community? You're an elected official. Your community is complaining about something or trying to get your attention on a certain matter, and you're snoring as they're talking. It's just
incredibly rude. And it's so funny because you're a little bit older than me, but we're generally around the same generation age. When we grew up, and I was in the 80s, none of this shit would be acceptable. No one would look the other. They would be called out so quickly. They'd be on the news. I know for a fact that the news here in the city of St. Louis, so I want to make my point with my pointing, right? I know for a fact they do not report information. I've sat there and watched things happen. They don't report. We've given them information about the petition we ran. They won't run the story. They act as spies for the people they go and they talk to.
Oh, yeah.
The corruption is beyond the pale. And quite frankly, anyone who's involved in it is complicit. And in my vault, they need RICO to bust all these people. And honestly, the traitors, I have no mercy for them. I'm sorry, God. I'm very sorry, but I have no mercy for them. Let God have mercy for them. We need to inflict laws on anyone that's involved in treason in this state, in this city of mine, and all of the country. Done. Which is
another problem we have, is because I almost feel like you are trapped to a degree. And I'm going to ask you this question.
That's their intent.
Yeah, because here's the things that I see. I don't trust the elections. I'm just like you. I don't trust the elections. I don't trust the way they even pick the Speaker of the House. So even if you were to have legitimate elections, they pick the Speaker of the House, and that's picked before that person's even been reelected. So the whole thing is rigged from top to bottom. 100%. And you look around and you go, how can we fix the problem if you don't have legitimate elections? You can't really you can't get out of it. And then you go to the courts, right? You go to the courts, and so yesterday was the 4th person in power in the state of Missouri that I've sent this video about Jeff Winehouse. Have you heard the story about Jeff Winehouse?
You mentioned it to me. I haven't gotten a chance to watch the video yet.
Watch that video.
I will. By the way, you might want to, I'm not trying to insult you. You might want to do clips because 3 hours long. We tell everybody that. We're with you. I got you. I'm not trying to be mean. It's just, Tucker and Candace and all the kind of rebel journalists who are coming out, conservative ones that are talking about stuff. That's going to make it easier because I sent it to somebody who's like, oh, I'm sorry, bro, but I'm not watching the 3 hours. I'm like,
yeah.
I get it, So, but anyway, I'm just trying to.
100%. And Isaiah and I talk about
I just added chaptering yesterday too, so it's making it a lot easier on YouTube now.
But I heard the story, and my findings are complete, and I think a lot of your followers too are also involved. There's no explanation for the way they act and how coordinated they are unless there is an organized gang, which is most likely through the Freemasons, that is used to control, manipulate the politics, and then corrupt everyone else involved, try to corrupt the grassroots. Obviously, there's AFP that's involved, which everyone by now should know is a complete shit organization that's owned by globalist oligarchs. And I'm pretty sure some of the people we mentioned earlier are taking money or influence from them. They're freaking idiots.
And that's what I said. And the point I was going to make, and I agree with you 100%, by the way, is the trap that you're in. If you can't do it through the ballot box, right? You can't change over your government. Yeah. And then you try to get things done through the courts. The reason you can know that there's something going on with the courts is Jeff Winehouse videotaped his execution. You can see it. You can hear the conversation. Then you can hear what the cop said. It's 13 seconds, right? It's 13 seconds from the time Jeff Winehouse gets out of his car before the highway patrolman shoots him 4 times. 13 seconds. The highway patrolman didn't know that Jeff had a spy watch on. Mm-hmm. So then you get to hear what he's talking about that happened, and you know that everything that he said is a lie.
Yeah,
it went all the way to the Supreme Court, Andy, and the man still sits in jail. So if the courts are corrupted and the elections are being manipulated, what are citizens supposed to do? That's been my question for a long time. How do you get out of the box?
Sure. Well, first of all, obviously locally, there's Ali Grafe situation. We tried to expose. I'm sorry for pronouncing your name wrong, Ali. There is the Ashcroft situation in Osage County where they basically broke election laws, and that still has not been reported by anyone. I can go on and on and on. The depth of what's going on is unbelievable, and the fact that nobody will cover Dave Schatz, who is clearly a criminal organizer. Whatever. But anyway, here's the answer. You're already doing it. We're already doing it. Right. And what I mean by that is, look, do you know how many, I can't count on 10 of my fingers or my hands, how many people have already started to question. And look, I still hope that Trump is on our side and playing some deep game to expose all people, because you know what? They're all exposed on the local, on the state level. They are all being flushed out, and they don't realize it, but they're screwing themselves. And and look, they can try to kill some of us. They can try to kill me. They can come after me with lawfare. I think they're kind of stupid rednecks. So we'll see. I've also got some powerful Democrat lawyers on my side. So good luck, guys. But if you want to, go for it. But what I was going to say is, we are doing it. Yes, it's defeating because it feels like they have complete control, which they kind of do, but they don't have control of our minds yet. They don't have control of our souls yet. They don't have control of our actions. And if you're getting to a place where 80%, and also I'll tell you, is sort of the moderate left and the moderate right are coming together. I talk to them. I work with them. When you get with some of these people, they might not like Trump, but they complain about the same things we complain about in their, and now what you see with people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, I think maybe you may be getting some moderate leftist audiences in the future. I'm talking to leftists in the city who are sick of the data center nonsense. Yeah, we don't agree on a lot of stuff, but as Christians, aren't we supposed to work with people who are different than us? Aren't we supposed to be concerned with people who are different? Aren't we supposed to not be stubborn jerks? You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm saying is, I think it's already happening. It's not happening as quickly as we want. And don't get me wrong, I get depressed about it too and upset that it doesn't happen faster. We are in a society that expects everything to happen like that.
Yep.
Believe me, I get a call on Saturday for a woman to come clean stuff up with water, and an hour isn't fast enough for her on a Saturday at 2:00. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure my competitors can't move that quick, but regardless, it's so I think we are doing it. And I think what you're seeing is there's this slow motion movement towards, I don't want to say the middle, but towards common decency and defending the republic and rebuilding it. And I think we'll get there, but I think they might kill us. And I might be one of them, but I don't care anymore. So I make sure I go to confession, because in my religion, you got to do that, right? And I try to keep my soul as clean as I can, because if that's what happens, that's what happens. But there'll be 10 more of me that rises, and you'll eventually lose. And then you'll be in hell for the rest of your life. So have fun with that, because there is a hell, there is a heaven, and we will be judged.
I like you, Andy. You're going to have to come on more.
I got fiery because I stopped giving a shit, because in the last month, I've stood up to 3 people that I thought were, one of them I still consider a friend, but deeply disagree with them, and 2 who I just think are self-serving. I won't use the British C word. I won't use out of politeness.
Well, you're kind of like me. I get into these in the political arena. You do want to have some contact with these people so you can have conversations with them, right? You want to find out what's going on. You want them to inform the public on legislation, this, that, and the other.
You can. Some of them I'm not talking to anymore because it's a waste.
I'm that way though. I'm getting to where I don't even care what they think anymore. I'm like,
unless they come to me with an apology,
right?
And I'll apologize too. All right.
What do you think? I was going to ask you, what do you think is going to be the end game with these AI data centers? Do you think this is all going to be built? Is this built into the cake? Are people going to be able to stop it? What is your take if you look out into the future on these AI data centers? Because to me, Andy, I just got to say this. It just seems so absurd to me that we have people fighting for these. It's so weird to me. I can't really wrap my arms around it. Even the people that implemented them, even the people that organized them, even the people that invented the technology tell you that this could end all of humanity. And we're building them as fast as we can because it's going to bring in some revenue to a county. It's insane to me.
It's absolutely insane. Well, I think there's a few different scenarios. Look, I'm joking here, but in Terminator, Skynet eventually lost, right? Eventually.
Yeah. Eventually,
a bunch of people died, and we had to go back in time, and all sorts of nonsense. And Arnold and so, I think they're obviously going to be successful in building some. I am. Some days I'm a Q guy, other days I'm not a Q guy. Right? I will say that there was something in the Q post that said we're going to flush them out and make them escalate their timeline so they expose themselves. That seems like it's happened with data center AI to me.
Everything.
I also want to know why Peter Thiel moved to Argentina, which is a Zionist stronghold. Maybe something isn't as we see. Hopefully it isn't as we see. What I hope is that there's one day all these people are arrested, tried in tribunals, and shot in the face for treason after found guilty, to be clear. Right. But that being said, if that doesn't happen, yes, they may win for a while. I think they are desperate. I think they are power hungry. I think they are I think they are evil, and I think their puppets are stupid. And so I think they may win in the short run. And honestly, I may end up living in a city where I can't drink my water. I may end up living in a city where I have to turn my electric off. I've thought about that. I unfortunately planned for that. I intend to sue the hell out of everyone I can in the future if I have to get my money back, including Ameren, because all these utility companies are in on it. That whole board is corrupt to the bone that oversees them in Jefferson City. I think here's what I would, my best guess, if I had to bet on it as an investor, because I am an investor, I think they will be successful for a while. I think the fact that awareness is already fairly high, even with people, the more low information voters, I would say, I think the first time water in the St. Louis area is not potable, the first time an electric bill goes to $500 a month for a small 1-bedroom apartment, I think that's when the people are going to be all organized, and we're going to be in front of city halls or in front of Jefferson City, and then they're going to be scared for their lives. And I'm not advocating hurting them. I'm not advocating violence unless they start hurting us. And then that's sort of a self-defense issue, right? And I hope to God, and I've talked to Sheriff Bonham, not to implicate him in this, and some other law enforcement, I think about half law enforcement will be good and stand down if these jackasses argue them to hurt us, because there's very good law enforcement. I hope that same law enforcement turns and beats the shit out of those who think they're going to be tyrants, because they're scum. If they ever use a law enforcement to get us in this country, then they got a whole new problem on their hand.
Yeah, I think you are right on the money. I've said to everybody, because, you know, when you're doing a show like mine, right, and, you know, it's not sunshine and butterflies every day.
Sure.
It's not, right? It's not. But I don't think we're black pillars either. I mean, Isaiah and I try to have as much fun as we can as we inform people. But I agree with you 100%. I think what happens is you plant the seed of what is happening. People start to contemplate it, even if they don't outwardly talk about it with their friends and their family. It's embedded in the back of their mind that, hey, we might be moving down the wrong direction here. This government might not be on our side. The people that stuck needles in, that's the one I can't get over. Stuck needles in your arm by mandate. Maybe those people aren't your best friends. And then when things really start to shape people's lives, when their lives start to change for the wrong, and they start to really panic, that's when you're going to see people who's got the plan in the back of their mind join together with people like me and you.
But you had to see it.
You had to see
you
it.
Didn't see it. You said
here. Somebody
and that's the issue. Sometimes good comes from bad, and God works in mysterious ways, which is obviously cliche, but it's true. And I think we had to see it. And some of these things we've seen. Someone commented that the people saw us in their drinking water. I filter my St. Louis City drinking water. I have like 20 of these that sit in my refrigerator at all times, and I refuse. I'm off of fluoride entirely. I use hydrogen peroxide. I use other things to clean my teeth. I have more vivid dreams. My brain works better. I can go on and on. Completely agree. They've probably been poisoning the water, and you know how they find the pharmaceuticals they didn't clear out? They're probably putting them in the water. Is what's really going on. You know, it's look, and I think there's a lot of pawns in this. And you know, if we stick to our Christian beliefs, if the pawns come forward, and I think, and I'm sorry to insult them, I shouldn't say that. If people caught up in this nonsense know what's going on, they should come forward more. They should come on your show. They should come on other shows. They should talk about what's going on. And, you know, you have people that you know that are tied to law enforcement and feds and tough people that protect you. I do too. So, you know, look, there's a community here, and we'll defend people. And, you know, these people aren't as powerful as they think.
You know what's so funny about that, Andy? I didn't even know that I told you that. But yeah, you have your own little organization, right? You know, you have your own little organization of people that are willing to protect you and point things out and figure things out. And you have to create your own little private. It's crazy to say that, but you have to create your own little private.
Insane.
Your private security people that say,
I mean, honestly, if they kill me, they're going to have a big problem on their hands.
You think that's real? You see, I have not
in New York and in some of the coastal areas, it's real. I think it's possible they've killed people in Missouri. I think you have sort of a mafia, Dixie mafia, white trash thing going on in some places, and in St. Louis too. I'm not trying to be a rural thing there. Yep. Look, there's a bunch of shitheads in St. Louis too. But what I was going to say is, I think they don't do it on their last resort, and I think we haven't really. I think if we had a smoking gun in my files right here, right now, and I was about to give it to you, or it was going to go on the mainstream media, maybe they put a bullet in my head. I don't think they like us. I don't think it's possible they may, you know, be raising my taxes because of it. They may be rejecting my fiance's, you know, K-1 visa or making it more difficult. I will say Senator Schmidt, to his credit's office, has been helping with it. I've documented everything because I don't trust the federal government at all. But, you know, I also don't care, because I don't want to have kids or me live in this country or this state or this city if we can't fix this shit, because they're just going to make it worse and worse and worse. So it's either do or die, you know?
That's how I see it too. And by the way, when you were talking about the water, joneswater.com, 636-899-1040 for all of your water and air filtration needs. You'll be the filter, or you'll buy the filter, joneswater.com. If you're drinking that funky water, if you're breathing that funky air inside of your home or a business, why? I just have to ask why. Why would you want to take the risk of drinking public water right now? Ugh, I can't even imagine it. We don't drink public water ever. JonesWater.com, 636-899-1040. All that nasty air that's in your home, when you open up your curtains, you see all that particles flying around. You're breathing that in. That's going to create skin problems, respiratory problems, nasal problems, all of it.
Tons of mold.
Air, got to have it. Air and water filtration, JonesWater.com, 636-899-1040, JonesWater.com. All right, how about that? Andy, there he is right there. You got right into a Jones Water commercial, and you didn't even know you were going to do it.
Well, I will, to help Mr. Jones there. We do mold remediation, and if you want to keep mold spores down in your house, if you have air filtration, that'll definitely do it. And you do not want mold remediation because it's extremely expensive. We are 20% cheaper than most people in the area. Sorry for the advertising, but
I love it. What's the name of your business?
It's Disaster Emergency Services, disasteremergencyservices.com. Happy to answer consultative questions. I'll tell you how to prevent it. We always make sure we tell you what the source was. We try to find the source. We've never not been able to so far. We try to make it never happen again. And we try to make sure that you're not paying, ridiculous prices. Fortunately, a lot of my competitors are in bed with the insurance agencies. I don't think they respect your home or you. And, we do, we're small enough to care and big enough to do a good job. We've done commercial jobs. We've done residential. We are the Salvation Army's preferred vendor in the St. Louis area because we've earned it. We want to.
How long have you been around?
4 years. We're not around that long, but enough to learn our stuff. We've taken classes down in Florida on how to advise people to make sure insurance doesn't rip you off. Now, I can't advise you from a legal perspective, as I think your ECS guy, Larry Evans, can, because he's a public adjuster. But I can tell you how to make sure they're not lying to you or ripping you off, and he can help you even more to make sure that doesn't happen. Because unfortunately, insurance companies are getting more and more ruthless in terms of, and they'll just tell you insane stuff that isn't true if you check your policy. And then if they get caught, they go, oh, sorry. And if you sue them, they settle. So there's not law against them, right? They control all our state houses. It's corrupt to the core. There's another large institution that goes back to Lloyd's of London that needs to be crushed for the benefit of the people. So, and look, yes, I make good money when I work. I want to make good money. I want you to not have to pay out of your pocket. And if you do, we'll find a deal. But end of the day, I want to make sure we leave with people knowing that we've done the right thing.
Can I get an amen?
Amen.
What else is on your mind today? I got a couple more minutes with you. Anything else on your mind today that you wanted to get out? What do you think? Can I ask you a question, though, since I got you? I don't think you and I have ever talked about this. Are there reps in Missouri that you have a lot of respect for? Like, I'm a Mike Moon, Bryant Wolfen fan. I like those two. Those two reps. I don't. Mike Koslow is one that I continue to say I don't agree with. Mike Koslow. I think he's a little bit of a mouthpiece for the establishment.
Sure,
but he seems to believe it, and he's willing to have the conversation with you. It's hard for me to dislike somebody that will come and have the conversation. It just is.
That's admirable. Unfortunately, I've heard some things about Mike that, from some folks that I think are watching right now, that are a little concerning. Although I don't know a lot about them, so it's probably not my place to talk about them in fairness. I have seen him attack. He attacked me once. He attacks people sometimes, and I think some of it is a little bit over the top. But
Koslow did?
Yeah. Mike Moon, look, I don't know Mike Moon, but I will say he stands up to his party, and that is already admirable. I will say he's an independent thinker. He's almost like a Mike Massey. I'm surprised they haven't gotten rid of him. I was a little suspicious, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but I believe his son died, and I was always like, hey, what's that? Because
Mike Moon's son died. He died in so Mike Moon is the one that fights the Republican Party. He has a son that lives out in Virginia on a boat, and then the boat catches fire, and his son, I think, was found in the water dead, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, and that's kind of the MO when they kill somebody. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's an accident. Oh, it's a car crash. Oh, it's a plane crash. This kind of stuff. So I don't know, but I'm suspicious. I don't know what he's ever been public about that, and I'm really sorry if I'm bringing up stuff and it's not true. But I think Moon's a good one. It's a really hard thing, to be honest, because it seems like they always sell out. They always go back because the establishment crushes them, and I don't respect that, because I think, look, our business has ups and downs and it's difficult and life's hard, but I'm not going to, and my partner and I, Ben Davis, are not going to fall on doing something shitty or wrong just because it's easy, because I've done that before, and it doesn't make you happy. It doesn't make you get ahead. Eventually it catches up with you, whether it's this life or the next. I don't know. I think they pretend to be good. They show up to grassroots events. They talk about Jesus. They do all this stuff to try. I'm one of you. And then they end up in some bar in Jefferson County having sex parties. I won't name the bar, but a lot of us know what it is, right?
You're letting it all fly today, Andy. It's funny because you're like the grassroots. The grassroots people know exactly what you're talking about. So we all
That's who I'm talking to.
Yeah, we all have this image of what's going on in the state of Missouri. I think we have a somewhat of an understanding of what's really going on behind the scenes of Missouri.
Yeah,
and nobody wants to talk about it openly because I don't really know why. But I don't know if it's people are worried about legal, they're worried about fear, they're worried about their reputations being ruined, the courts coming after them. I think people are fearful of it. But what you're describing is what we all talk about privately because you hear all kinds of things that go on.
I'll leave you with this, and this may have been said on your show before. There are numerous people. First of all, they all sleep around on each other. There's a consultant in Jefferson City who's told me all kinds of things, and she's in the know. She's worked with the Senate pro tem or whatever, and all the different people. I stopped paying attention because they're all scumbags. But they all sleep around. They all sleep around. There's proof of it. There's envelopes that go around that they get the money from the envelopes on a certain day in between session. And then there's a certain individual who has a radio show out of Jefferson City who's a corrupt motherfucker. Sorry, who's a corrupt guy from South Missouri, who I believe was a mayor of Poplar Bluff, I might say, who is known for a briefcase to go after Greitens and who is suspected to have sex parties to entrap them. There's a certain lobbyist who has planes in Chesterfield who, let's see, bribes people with things and goes to Las Vegas. These guys are jerks. They're absolute jerks, and they should be in prison. And they're
and I know every story you're talking about. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and the thing is, they should know that we all know, and we're sharing the stories. And you know what? You can use any lawfare, anything you want. You're not going to win.
And you know how I know some of those stories are true? Right? I have a firsthand witness who's a friend of mine who was very nervous that I was talking about it. Actually, she told me, she goes, Rob, I heard you. She goes, you mentioned this person's name on the radio. She goes, just please don't mess with that particular person. I've known this person for a long time. He's just not somebody you want to mess with. And I said, all right, I gotcha. But she was emphatic that I not mention this person's name. And you brought up, you kind of got around it just a little bit there, but she was actually nervous for me.
You know that Italian saying when they really don't respect you, vaffanculo? They can do that.
You have. Something was in the coffee this morning. You decided to let it rip. I said, say whatever you want.
I'm just done. And I might get shot at later today or in a week, or I might get turbo cancer or whatever other nonsense they pull out. Let them do it.
Antivirus.
Yeah, exactly. I'll die with at least some dignity, and with hopefully God will know that I think that. Look, I hate when people talk about religion too much because sometimes it's manipulated and the politicians do it. But I'd like to think, and I pray that the Holy Spirit would speak through me. And if I'm in trouble, I'm in trouble. But you know what? We got to tell the truth. We got to stop this crap.
We do have to stop it. It has to stop. We don't have an endless amount of time to fix what's going on in this state.
And I don't want children of anybody to grow up in this BS. In this city of mine that I live in, I want to see it become the shiny place it used to be, where there was a lot of economic opportunity. A lot of people, there was issues, there was race. We can talk about all that stuff that was bad, but there was a good economic engine. Black folks in the middle class, white folks in the middle class, people could build businesses. There were good things. It's gone to crap, and it's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable.
It exceeds political situations. It doesn't matter anymore. It's like, the Democrats are going to win. Oh no. What's the difference? We get screwed either way.
What is the difference? A good question. I tell that story all the time, Andy, and I don't know how old you are, but when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old, right around that time frame, because it was when I first met my buddy Derek, we used to take a taxi. Now, we lived over by the airport, and my parents would, it was my father, he'd give us money to take a taxi down to the Cardinals games, right? So we take a taxi down there, say it was an afternoon game at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We take a taxi down there, get down there around 10, because we wanted to see the players who stayed at the Marriott Hotel. They would walk across the street to the games, the opposing players. And one time we went there, and I do remember it vividly. It was I don't know if you're a baseball fan, but it was during.
I went to Cardinals game with my family. My grandma used to buy season tickets, so I went all Candy and Fredbird.
Come get it. So it was Montreal Expos and Andre Dawson and Tim Raines. That was back when they wore the skin tight polyester pants. It was like 1981. Right. And I remember Tim Raines had legs that were just. It was because he had the tight pants on. I remember thinking how big his legs were. But that's a vivid memory to me, was going down there. Watching the opposing players come across the street, asking them for autographs. They would walk across the street freely. They'd go into the game. They'd play the game. We would watch the game until it was over and then take a taxi back home. I cannot imagine that a parent wouldn't be arrested today if they put their kid in a taxi at 11 years old, to get down to downtown St. Louis, run around the streets of downtown St. Louis, go to a Cardinal game, and then come back. That's how much time has changed. Times have changed. And that is what I think you and I are looking for, is we just want to be free in our country again. There was a time when kids didn't feel like they were under a complete stress all the time.
Totally.
And it's like every time your kid doesn't call you, they're 10 minutes late. You're like, oh my God, what happened? Because
and actually, I'll tell you a quick story, because I know you're probably coming up on the hour or when you need to go. But I actually testified at a city hall meeting for the St. Louis City, which is the first time I've done this, last Monday, because we're still in litigation about the petition to audit the city, which the Board of Elections has corrupted the process, and the Missouri Judicial, in my view, has corrupted the process. And luckily, some very ethical, Democratic-leaning lawyers have come to defend us, because there are good Democrats, folks. I hope you just know that. I just want to stress that, because I've gotten to know some of these people, and I think they're good people. They don't always love my views either. But what I was going to say is, and they're talking about how they're going to spend this money for downtown to bring people in. Well, I was there to talk about the audit, but I couldn't help myself. And the first thing I said was, as politely as I can say it, and I know you all don't want to hear this, nobody wants to come downtown or come to games or come to the city because they think they're going to get shot. Now, to be fair, or ran over by some idiot going 90 miles an hour that nobody polices. Now, do I think it's a little exaggerated because I live here? Yeah, but I also know some of it's true. Mm-hmm. So, and here's the thing. Why put yourself at risk when your suburbs safer? Because the big truth is there's problems everywhere. You know what I mean? But no one wanted to say anything. No one wanted to hear anything. I was contacted by a few people afterwards about the audit. You know who doesn't want this audit besides the Democrats? The Republicans, because they're tied to the corruption too, and they're all interconnected. And it's some of those consultants I talked about earlier, they'd go to jail. There's a lot of people that would go to jail if you did it right. So the next thing they do, even if we get it approved, is they'll try to pollute the process. I will say the state auditor, at least officially, has said he supports us, because I think he knows the case is going to be won.
Patrick?
But yes. So I, at least on the surface, I applaud him for doing that. I don't know his allegiance. I hope he's good. It's hard to know anything. And the reality is, if you're a part of a gang, you're a part of a gang. Mm-hmm. So, it's not like you're a good Crip or a good Blood.
Right. Right. You're too funny, man. I was just thinking, I think the first time we met, we were in Osage County. I think you're speaking this year. I'm going to be in Brazil then. Maybe they'll kill me on the way there. You're going to Brazil at the time I'm speaking. So I'm going down there. Yeah, they came after the rants out in Osage County. Did they? Oh, yeah. You might want to talk to Linda about that. They're coming after their chairmanship, and they basically used a bunch of pawns, and it's really complicated. You'd have to talk to Linda about it, but that's what Linda Rants, for the audience. Linda Rants is somebody who thinks we should do hand counting of ballots, right? That's been her big thing. She's politically active. And she was there at the Osage County meeting that we're talking about the first time I met you. And you're saying that now they're coming after her too. I got to talk. Her chairmanship, as well as Craig, her husband, is on there. There's a lot of, they were pushing vetting, which obviously it seems to make sense if you want a true Republican conservative, group of people running for elections. But if you want Democrats running as Republicans or liberals running as Republicans, so they can smear the agenda. Precisely. So some of the ones that were probably skeptical, and look, all these counties got dirtiness. Osage has got issues. They love Kehoe down there because they're dumb. Some of them, I should say, some of them are smart. I wouldn't be surprised if Kehoe's tied to it, because Kehoe was, to my knowledge, and I'm not going to say this was the sheriff who said this, but he was coming after Sheriff Bonham. But Sheriff Bonham's too popular down there, and on top of that, he's now the chairman, I believe, of the Sheriff Association. So, look, there are good people. Okay, there are good people. Sometimes they're scared. Sometimes they don't do as much as I wish they would. But there are good people, and if people continue to stand up and leave their houses and say no and call people out and demand that here's a big question. Why is law enforcement not investigating any of this stuff we say that we know is a fact? They do nothing. The Highway Patrol likes to give tickets. They're supposed to investigate other crimes. Why won't St. Louis City investigate the politicians? And then I hear from my friend who knows a lot of feds. That's sort of a threat to anybody. That good friend, by the way, who has sworn to protect me, that and he will do it and can, has said very clearly that, the feds don't want to go after politicians because they're afraid of the PR. That's the craziest thing in the world. If they're the top of the pyramid and they're involved in political issues, they're the first people you should go at. They're more dangerous than the drug dealer on the street because they're the organizers. That's right. Is it more important to go after the guy selling what's one of the old drug dealers, Noriega's drugs,
or is it, on the street, or is it good to go after Noriega? What shuts down the operation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right there with me. I'm the same exact thought, Andy.
The bigger criminals are the ones we need to go after. And to be honest with you, I'd rather have this plumber I know who's of mediocre intelligence, but is a good guy. I'd rather have him as a representative who listens to his constituents than these guys owned by AFP, owned by the Zionists, owned by the CCP, involved in human trafficking or whatever the hell else they're doing,
Yeah.
There's tunnels all over Missouri.
I know, nobody wants to believe that either. I had somebody fill me in on that right when I first got to St. Louis and started telling me what was going on. I'm like, come on, can that be real?
Well, I don't know that this is tied to the situation, but we're in the Lemp district, Cherokee and Lemp, where my family was originally from. Lemp Brewery is right there. I'm at the corner of Lemp and Cherokee. There are caves there in the old Cherokee caves that are supposed to connect to everything. I don't know what's going on. I'm not saying there's anything to that, and I honestly have a low probability there's something to it, but there are caves all over Missouri.
I think all over the country. That's been a widely spread rumor, too, that this is where the trafficking people is underground.
Well, at one point, and I could be completely crazy on this, but when I first moved here around 2019, 2020, I heard all these explosions, and they seemed like they were coming from underground. And I know a construction boom, when something falls or when you're building something, it felt like it was underneath me. And there's caves all around this area. So you start to say, great, maybe I'm nuts, maybe I'm wrong, but you start to wonder, you know what I mean? Yes. Especially when you see how these people behave, how they act, what they do. Look, if you can't put pieces together, I think you need to go work on discernment. How many coincidences do we need to have before the people who are doubters realize that we are not a clean, well-run, non-corrupt country? Brazil feels safer in Sao Paulo, parts of Sao Paulo, and Santos.
I've never seen a transformation of society faster than what happened after COVID.
Yes.
I mean, 9/11 was bad, but it still felt like after a couple of years, it felt like it was a normal society again. Post-COVID, as far as I'm concerned, the whole society feels different. Everything feels different.
Oh, it does. I agree with you. And it's, without getting too preachy, it's selfless. It's selfish. It's even people that I like will do things that I think are very ignorant because they feel like I need it right away, sort of thing. The law enforcement is next to nowhere. It just feels like everything is scoundrelish and that and honestly, I had a theory I shared with Sheriff Bottom that I feel like if Trump is a good guy, which I realize is a big if right now, that his job was to flush people out. And it almost like he went to him and said, hey, you can do whatever you want. Go ahead and do it.
I say the same thing.
Because the moment Kehoe took office, every dirty, subhuman, selfish, nasty thing started happening. And they just don't care that we see it. And there's a lot of people who are just, what do you mean? The Democrats are worse. It's like, are they? They are in some regard. And also you're supposed to have parties fight each other. That's part of the system. I know for a fact they're united. Do you remember all those Democrats that clapped when Kehoe won?
Yes, I was down there. Andy, 2 stories, and then I got to play this Mason thing for
you.
Will you please text Rick and let him know we're going to be just a couple minutes late because I want to get a couple things done with Andy. I'm down there.
He's in here. He can hear you.
I was down there with the Speaker of the House race.
Yeah.
Right. And when Justin Sparks stood up to be Speaker of the House, you know who stopped it and blocked it? The Democrats. Democrats wanted John Patterson. Isaiah just.
If your enemy is actually helping you, what a great Machiavellian situation.
The Democrats stood up in unison for the Speaker of the House. It's a Republican. I mean, he can't make it up. And then
it makes no sense.
And then what was the other one I was going to tell you? Isaiah and Jake Jackson and I went down to with Act for Missouri and the Shield Maidens, just went down just to watch a typical day on the Senate floor, right? And I didn't really understand it because you got a lot of moving parts going on. But what they were saying were Democrats,
they like
adding amendments to Republican bills left and right. Democrats adding amendments to Republican bills. I'm like, well, why would they let them if they have collusion?
Yeah,
it started to make sense. Act for Missouri explained that to me one day on the show.
We as individual people should be willing to work with people on issues we agree on. But it seems when they work together, it's to screw us all over.
Yeah,
that's simple. You know. So sorry, my name was so big there.
So I'm trying to think if Rick might have sent this to me, or it might have been Jones Water. I can't remember, but I want to play this for you because you talked about Masons for just a minute. I played that show the other day.
I've got books that were burned on them.
I learned about it just recently. I didn't know much about it, but now I'm starting to get familiar with these secret societies. Newt Gingrich twice on Fox News said the people that are involved in the secret societies are running the show and they don't want to give up their power. Newt Gingrich said that twice on Fox News, and I went, what? Secret societies? Then you've got, remember the guy that ran Meet the Press? What was that guy's name? Tim, what was the old guy from Meet the Press?
I know what you're talking about. Real quick on that. They infiltrated my church. We know about it. I'm part of the traditional Latin Mass. There's people fighting it behind it in front of the scenes. And if you go back to the 1890s, I believe it was Pope Pius X wrote a long thing basically on the Freemasons are of the devil. They're the worst people on earth. And nowadays we're like, oh, who are the Freemasons? If you notice how many Freemasons are enough to Catholic churches, there's a reason for that. And what I'll say is, I believe personally that a lot of the sexual abuse scandals are tied to infiltration of the church and Freemasons and communists who wanted to bring down the church's reputation. I understand people don't like the Catholic Church. I'm not trying to convert you. That's fine. Different points of view, but you have to look at what's really going on here. To this day, those Freemason temples are always next to the churches. It's very, very suspicious and shady. And I want my church to get back to calling them out and saying, you cannot be a Catholic and support Freemason at the same time. You can't be a Christian and be a Freemason.
I say, I don't even know what a Freemason is. I don't even know what it means. I don't. I'm a novice to it. One of my buddies said,
they have this stupid symbol on their cars, and there's a lot of pawns too that are. I think you have to get to a certain level before they tell you what's really going on. If I understand.
Yeah, I was going to say it really just depends on what level you're at, and then you start. Then you start realizing.
No different than large corporations,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or government.
Tim Russert was the guy. Remember Tim Russert? If you can look those up, Isaiah, while we'll play a clip first, and while we're playing that clip, maybe you can look it up. But Tim Russert asked John Kerry and George Bush if they were involved in Skull and Bones secret societies at Yale, and both of them got real uncomfortable real fast, which I thought maybe there is something behind these secret societies. Maybe that's real. It would make sense because you can never figure out who's behind the curtain.
It's a distributive, centralized network, right? Where if you have a bunch of different things, and also if they ever get caught, it doesn't lead up to the actual, puppet masters, which what's my theory? Well, there's a theory of 13 families. I think the royal family is definitely one of them. I think they use the Zionists for their own goals, while the Zionists use them for their own goals and all against us. I believe the CCP is controlled by them and or sort of some interaction between the Zionists.
That would make sense because
they want us to be like the CCP.
And who opened up a trade between China and the United States?
Nixon and Kissinger. And Kissinger was deep state is dirty. He's smart as hell, to be fair, but his books were very smart. I don't know what's true or what's not. I actually sometimes think, and you may agree with this, that Nixon actually had good intentions but got drawn into stuff. And it's quite possible Watergate was exaggerated and somewhat of a setup and bullshit.
I think so too. Yeah, I agree with you. All right, I got to play this.
Don't tell my 70s dad smoking pot that, but
he did not want the revolution of love. What was it? Peace and love.
Yeah,
peace and love. Peace and love.
Just turned into mental illness and freaking obesity.
All right, I got to play this for you though.
It all comes from Satanism, really.
Let's play this, and then we'll bring in Rick. Satanism. You guys were talking about Satanism. So this woman. This is an old video. I remember. So the first time I saw this video, and somebody just sent it to me yesterday. I can't remember who it was. And I thought, you know what? I got to play that because we've been talking about the Masons. I don't know anything about the Masons. I don't know other than what I hear. But I'm in Vegas. All right. So I'm walking around in Vegas. Somebody sent me this clip. I listened to it. And I remember my wife was kind of, we were like outside in this outdoor shopping little corridor thing. And she's like aggravated with me because I got my headphones on and I'm listening to this. And I just remember it vividly because I started to irritate her because I was so caught up in this particular video. This, I guess, is some, as she describes it, is something that she found that was kind of a doctrine for the Masons. And she was reading it. And I said, well, I don't know if it's a doctrine for the Masons, but it does kind of explain how the whole system would work. And if it is the Masons, then it would make sense. Or if it's any kind of secret society, because this is how they run society. This is how society runs.
It's similar to Epstein, by the way. They're pedophiliacs and sex addicts and all that kind of stuff. So anyway.
Yep. Okay. Play this clip. Clip number 13. Tell me what you think of this.
Hi, it's Dana Horchowski. It is October the 9th, 2009. And I'm going to read you the secret covenant. I only have 10 minutes. It's on the Polly Hicks section of CanadaStreetNews.com. And this is dedicated to the Jesuits, the High Freemasons, and the High Knights of Columbus, and those that have pledged a blood oath allegiance to the Luciferians, secret societies. The secret covenant. An illusion it will be, so large, so vast, it will escape their perception. Those who will see it will be thought of as insane. We will create separate fronts to prevent them from seeing the connection between us. We will behave as if we are not connected to keep the illusion alive. Our goal will be to accomplish one drop at a time so as to never bring suspicion upon ourselves. This will also prevent them from seeing the changes as they occur. We will always stand above the relative field of their experience, for we know the secrets of the absolute. We will work together always and will remain bound by blood and secrecy. Death will come to he who speaks. We will keep their lifespan short and their minds weak until pretending to do the opposite. We will use our knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways so they will never see what is happening. We will use soft metals, aging accelerators, and sedatives in food and water, also in the air. They will be blanketed by poisons everywhere they turn. The soft metals will cause them to lose their minds. We will promise to find a cure from many of our fronts, yet we will feed them more poison. The poisons will be absorbed through their skin and mouths, and they will destroy their minds and reproductive systems. From all this, their children will be born dead, and we will conceal this information. The poisons will be hidden in everything that surrounds them, and what they drink, eat, breathe, and wear. We must be ingenious in dispensing the poisons, for they can see far. We will teach them that the poisons are good, with fun images and musical tones. Those they look up to will help. We will enlist them to push our poisons. They will see our products being used in films and will grow accustomed to them and will never know their true effect. When they give birth, we will inject the poisons into the blood of their children and convince them it's for their help.
Vaccines.
We will start early on when their minds are young, and we will target their children and what the children love most, sweet things. When their teeth...
What happened?
I guess that's the end of the clip.
Oh, is that it? It goes on for like a long time. But that gives you an idea of what it is. And she runs through 10 minutes of just kind of everything that you see. Like talks about messing kids' teeth up with sweets and then putting metal things inside their mouth that are poisonous as well. I mean, she goes through a whole litany of different things. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, it's exactly what's happened. It's precisely what's happened. And, you know, at the beginning, she talked about the Knights of Columbus and the Jesuits. I don't consider the Jesuits Catholic, to be honest with you. I think they are infiltrators who need to be removed from the Catholic Church. We need a strong enough Pope to do that. Sorry, Jesuits, but it's true. I don't agree with Vatican II. I think it was meant to make the church more secular and go against our traditional values. Yep. And the Knights of Columbus, yeah, a lot of this has been corrupted, but it's happening in evangelical churches and almost every church you know. And yes, they've poisoned us. They're poisoning us. They've been poisoning us for a long time, and we were in denial about it. And the biggest part there is they call you crazy. We're not crazy. We're the ones who are trying to get rid of the poisons so we can be sane and feel good and sleep at night. And, you know, also the stuff when you feel bad, it's harder to feel, let's say, the Holy Spirit, right?
That's right.
So as I have started to clean myself spiritually as well as my body, I'm not perfect, you know, still drink sometimes. You know, I feel better. I sleep better. My mind's better. I'm not as angry. You know, I don't, not that there's not a lot to be angry about, but everything she said is correct. There's a book called The Hope of the Wicked. That was written by a Catholic. So I hope some of you can get over that, because we're not as bad as some people think we are. And the good ones aren't, you know, in line with some of the BS that you've seen with some of the popes and so on and so forth. But he basically said these same things and called off called all this out. It was written, I think, in 2001. Actually, Craig Rance taught me about it. And, you know, Hope of the Wicked. It's a very good book. And, you know, future, was it past proves future proves past, you know. There's also a document that I believe the Vatican or the Catholic Church came out with about how, look, I'm not going off on all Jews here. I have very good Jewish friends, but the Zionist type Jews, the corrupt ones tied to the cults, you know, were there to corrupt us. And, you know, and they were sort of the founders of Freemasonry originally, with some evil Christians as well. I personally believe, and this is going to offend some people, but this goes back so far as our religion was divided intentionally. Now, the Catholic Church had corruption. I'm not going to argue otherwise. I'm not trying to, you know, But it would be great if we could find some unity in Christianity again, even if we don't go to the same churches or have the exact same beliefs, because that division was intentional and it has hurt us. And again, I am not trying to say everybody should be Catholic. That's not what I'm trying to say. But in fact, I think the Catholic Church should maybe look at some of their things and think about if they're wrong on certain things, you know. But I'm still Catholic. Sorry.
Well, it's like one of my friends said, I think you and I talked about it Saturday. There are evil people in the Catholic Church, just like all organizations.
100%.
It doesn't make the religion itself wrong. It just makes the people that have infiltrated into the religion the devils that they are.
And I would never say that about Baptists or all evangelicals. I do think the Christian Zionists need to stop worshiping Israel and worship Christ, but that's another story entirely.
Wait, you're not a fan of Pastor Hagee? Come on.
No. Or any of the ones tied to TPUSA, which is
it's a completely different organization now.
No, it's completely different. And Charlie Kirk would be like, what the hell?
Exactly. It turned 180 from when Charlie Kirk was there. And now you
found out what happened and they killed him. That's simple. And everybody knows it who opens their eyes.
I agree. Yep. I agree. Not everybody agrees, but I agree.
I'm going to say something that I'm a little embarrassed about. I blew off Charlie Kirk. I didn't used to be as religious, and I sort of thought he was cheesy, to be honest with you. But then when I realized after he was shot, it's almost like a Jesus effect, to be honest with you, how good his intentions were and what he was trying to do.
How brave.
How brave. And honestly, there's a part of me that thinks God hasn't built me up to where I'm supposed to go yet, which is probably somewhat pride, so sorry for that. But because if it would have happened when I was younger, that same thing would have happened to me. They would have infiltrated. You would have thought, oh, these people love me. They're helping me. Then they're stealing your money. Then they're killing you. You know what I mean? So
if you know the entire Charlie Kirk story, I was talking to a friend the other day and was not a Candace Owens fan. And, I don't listen to all of Candace Owens shows. So I don't.
Hard to. There's a lot.
So I don't know what's right or wrong. All I do know is that Charlie Kirk warned about a war with Iran, warned about big Jewish influence over Turning Point USA, was beginning to change his opinion on the leadership of Israel, right? Was beginning to change his position on that. And then all of a sudden he's dead. His wife takes over and they've changed the entire focus of Turning Point USA. It's a completely different organization. It's actually a 180 turn from where Charlie Kirk was trying to take it. And you have to wonder if those two things are in alignment with each other for a reason. And I don't know. Something's weird with that story. By the way, when you said that, so George Orwell, all right, says, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past.
Right.
Well,
I can't remember what this is, but Christian Hafarchuk, if I said her name right, and I were talking about this recently. This whole Fruit of the Loom thing. They're like, oh no, we never had the logo of the fruit with the cornucopia. Yeah, they did.
Of course they did.
And then the Berenstein Bears, the spelling of that.
Why did they say that with the Fruit of the Looms? Because I heard that. I'm like, well, of course it did. I was a kid. I'm 100% sure. There's no doubt.
There's a theory that it's a new company and changed ownership. So that's their version of like sliding the truth. But then there's there's zillions of versions of this. And it starts to become an issue. Are you guys trying to change the past and testing us? Or what is really going on? Because, the Berenstein Bears book, I remember them being spelled a certain way. Now they're spelled a completely different way. And it doesn't. I looked at it, I was like, that wasn't what it was. And I'm pretty sure my mom still has some of those books at the house. And then you wonder, how deep does this go? Like what dimensional? I mean, I don't know. I don't want to get too crazy here because then the credibility of things I have said that have credibility.
About Fruit of the Looms. So
these are more like conversations after a beer late at night that
no doubt
your friends don't think you're that crazy, but everybody else does if you talk about it. So.
Right. The Fruit of the Looms logo.
Yeah, exactly. Right? They're saying they never had a cornucopia.
I'm 100% positive.
100% they are. I used to
isn't the company saying that it used to have it?
Everybody had it. Everybody had Fruit of the Loom.
Right. It isn't the company
Tidy Whities.
Tidy Whities. Isn't the company saying that didn't used to have the cornucopia?
Yes, I believe so. And it's and then there's something else with like I can't remember, maybe one of the drug dealers about what he did or he didn't do. Yeah, there's the Berenstein Bears thing, and it's. I swear it was
how it was spelled. I remember, and now they changed it to like an A or something like that.
And they act like it didn't happen, and you just sit there and you're like, well, yeah, So
it makes you wonder through time how many things have changed and how many stories change and that kind of deal.
Well, and that's the other thing where you have to be a little. Oh, let me give you a perfect example. And yes, I know I'm saying things that are pro-Catholic, and if people don't like that, sorry, we can debate that some other time. But there's this theory that the French king treated the French citizens so terribly and that's why they rebelled. That wasn't true at all. The France was at the time, there's books on this that aren't even written by Catholics, to be clear. And I'm not defending monarchy either, to be clear, but you need to know truth and not propaganda. There is a ton of evidence that France was one of the wealthiest countries in the world at that time. It was an empire, effectively, before it was destroyed. If it was Freemasonry, I believe it was at the time, those were who the Jacabans were, right? And then they came in, they took a bunch of church property. Again, you don't have to be a Catholic to say, hey, maybe you shouldn't steal church property, corrupt princes and whatnot. They killed, I think it's called the Vengi up north. They killed a bunch of Catholics. And I also want to say something to defend my church again, that, there's this whole theory that we were so terrible to Jewish folks. That doesn't exactly add up either, because the everyday people sometimes would rebel and I shouldn't say rebel, but they would do sort of vigilante justice against Jewish people. But the church itself and the bishops always had an idea of protecting Jews because they thought they were God's people and they were hoping they'd convert. But there were fake conversions. And this also gets into, just like there's bad Christians, there's bad groups of people of everybody, right? Like there's good
everywhere.
Do you know about the conversos, Andy?
Yes. You talking about in Spain?
Yep.
Yeah, the ones that pretended to convert, but actually were corrupting everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Inquisition was not even a third of as bad as they tried to say it was in terms of violence. Now, I'm not saying they treated people the way they should, but there were very few people actually killed and hurt. And that's vastly exaggerated. And that people don't want to talk about this. They don't want to hear it, and it offends them. And, I think people need to sometimes stop and consider they might be wrong, because every day I walk around, I consider I could be wrong every day. Because if you don't have that humility, you're not learning anything.
Right.
You're just a stubborn, angry fool, and I was that when I was younger. I'll admit it. And, and if I can be proven wrong, fine. Now you better have good proof, you know what I mean? Good arguments. But
I think that's how you learn, though, Andy. You learn by talking to people that you disagree with.
Our lawyer, whose name I won't say because he has different politics than us, but he agrees with us on some stuff, is, he's a black guy here in the city. And when I first met him, he asked me who found America. And you know what the official answer is, but apparently exactly. But if you really think about it, the Vikings and other people probably did before, right? And so I paused and I said, well, I guess that depends on who you ask. And he kind of liked that answer. And what I said to him was, I was like, well, it's like, I don't know, we talk and talk, but what he said to me is, you never really learned anything until you realized you were wrong about something and accepted it. And I think some people never do that. And when it's almost like the teenager of, no, I'm right, because you tie your pride to a belief.
Yeah.
Instead of to me, my pride's tied to wanting to do the right thing. And sometimes that means I'm wrong.
Right.
And
you tie it to your ego, right? You tie it to your ego. So you feel lessened by getting something wrong versus empowered by recognizing that you had it wrong and now you've got it right. So
Mandela effect. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, you look at it just like I do. Man, I got to cut you because I got to get Nick Pavitt's on the show. Man, great to hear from you. You got to be on more because I think that.
Sure, let's talk about it.
Great. I like when you. I like when you. Yeah, when you go.
Want to do it when I'm in Brazil, I can do it and show you Brazil.
Yes, show me Brazil. I haven't been to Brazil. I'd like to.
Be harder for him to kill me too if you're doing.
Actually, I got a buddy that owns a couple of factories in Brazil that makes shoes. I've been meaning to go down there. What part are you going to?
Santos. It's south of Sao Paulo on the beach. I actually own an apartmento there, but I'm actually when I'm there, they won't let my fiance in, so I got to go see her because it's been a while. But I'm also meeting with a guy who's a big builder that we're talking about raising a private equity firm to build in Brazil.
You got to send me a text of where you're going because I have a buddy that goes down there all the time.
I'd love to meet him. Yeah,
you'd love him. You actually look a little bit like him, to be honest with you. And but he's a really good friend of mine, and I've been meaning to go down there and just check it out because he says,
"Oh, dude, it's cool. It's fun. We also get 5 to 1 on your dollar, so you get to feel richer." And I got to tell you, they're more polite than Americans.
Yeah.
So. Anyway,
and there's only like a couple spots where it's dangerous. He goes, as long as you're with somebody who knows what they're doing, you're fine.
Exactly.
Be no different than going down to North St. Louis. Yeah, be no different than North.
No, exactly. It's dangerous here. So,
exactly.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Andy Polachek, have a great day, brother. I'll be in touch with you soon.
Take care. Appreciate you. Bye bye.
Right on. Wow, Isaiah, how about we had him all riled up this morning? That was really good. Can we do advanced wellness?
I love it. Yeah, let's do it. Before we go to. I got breaking news that I think you're going to like. Not necessarily like, but you're going to want to hear it, and it'll be interesting to
somebody was arrested. Was
Fauci arrested? With Rick Babbitt's. What were you saying?
Was Fauci arrested?
I wish. Even better, new Mossad chief was appointed by Bibi, new Mossad director. And funny thing, so I did some research while you were talking with Andy. Apparently, this guy, Roman Goffman, he's a October 7th hero. He ran to shoot the Palestinians when they were coming in on October 7th. And he's a big proponent of the war with Iran. Says that we need to destroy them. So yeah, very, very, very interesting. And
I got to go through some stories with Rick too, because I get Rick's opinion on a couple stories. See if and then we'll get into whatever Rick wants to talk about. But I got to get I got to talk about advanced wellness.
I do got to leave today just because we're going downtown.
Rick's already counting his time. He's like, no, don't be cutting me short. All right.
I do have to leave at noon though. So just as a heads up.
All right. Let me do advanced wellness.
Let's do it.
AdvancedWellnessMed.com. This is Dr. Helen Gelhart. You can reach her at 314-576-0094. I'll give you that number again in a minute. This is my favorite doctor. This is the lady who said, I'm not going to get involved with the hospital administrations because I want to be able to help people the way I want to help people. I want to do the right thing for the right reasons, which is care for people. And when you get into the vacuum of these hospital administrations, they limit your ability to help. So she said, I'm going to do it on my own, which I got to think, I haven't asked her, but I got to think that's cost her an absolute fortune in finances. But she does it because she wants to help people. As she likes to say, we assist the divine healer. And as you see on your screen, she's a very spiritual woman. Feel, think, look better, live longer. Let me tell you about her services very quickly. Some of the most important times in your life is when you are sick and you are concerned about whether you're going to make it and or your family is concerned about you. And what are the normal causes of people to die in this world, right? It's heart attack prevention, cancer prevention. She works on both. She has the earliest cancer detection blood test in the business. She has, she calls it cancer control. So I'll just leave it there, cancer control. But if you have cancer issues, if you want a blood test to find out where you stand with cancer, if you're susceptible to it, she takes care of that for you. The one that I think is very intriguing is Alzheimer's and dementia symptom reversal. If you have somebody in your family suffering with Alzheimer, suffering with onset dementia, and you're starting to be concerned about it, she can reverse the symptoms. She is just a wonderful, wonderful person, wonderful practice that she has there with her and entire family and staff. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. You can reach her at 314-576-0094. Again, a hospital, no hospital administration. She works on her own. She takes care of patients the way she wants to take care of them. She has people flying in from all over the country to see her. This is the way to do it. AdvancedWellnessMed.com. I highly suggest Dr. Helen Gelhart, 314-576-0094. Then we got
Dr. Helen would love Andy.
Yeah, she'd like Andy. She's a Catholic guy. They'll probably meet each other here pretty soon because they'll probably both be at our meeting that we're going to have in the middle of June. RocketCareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. My good friends Mitch and Brian. This is a nationwide business, so this is not just Missouri. If you are a small to medium-sized business and HR does not get the job done, you just can't get good candidates for positions that you have available, and you're getting tired of your business suffering because you cannot find the right employees, lean on my friends Mitch and Brian. They've been at this for a long, long time. Talent recruiting, they'll get the right candidates before you. Rocket, ROCKIT careers.com, ROCKIT careers.com. You can reach them at 636-778-2419, 636-778-2419. And again, if you're out of work, hate your job, can't take it for another second, lean on my good friends, Mitch and Brian at rocketcareers.com. They'll get your elevator pitch together. They'll connect you to all the people that they've met throughout the years around the country to launch a new career for you. They are the best, the very best. Rocketcareers.com, ROCKIT careers.com, 636-778-2419. And then Rack Custom Coatings, my friend Rich McQuay. You can check out his work when we get his site up. Again, he's locally owned and operated, family owned since 2001. He said, Rob, we install industrial strength, long lasting custom coatings built to handle anything your home or business can throw at them. And let me get this. I look at the pictures there.
Speechless now.
I just like the flooring. I like to look at it. I want to talk through it.
Oh, there we go. That's the picture right there.
I want to see it. They install industrial strength, long lasting coatings built to handle anything your home or business can throw at them. And from garages to commercial spaces, Rack Custom Coatings delivers tough, beautiful finishes that last. Again, if you have a home and you redo the flooring in your garage, I promise you'll be amazed at how much better your home looks. When you open that garage door, the curb appeal changes everything. Got to get him hooked up with Debbie Genus too, because Debbie is selling homes. Maybe he can do some home floorings for people that just move into their homes. Absolutely fantastic service. Been around since 2001. Great guy. RackCustomCoatings.com. You can reach him at 636-398-5040. And again, for any industrial space to get that floor looking nice and it's tough and it's reliable, 636-398-5040. Rack, R-A-K, CustomCoatings.com. Now let's bring in Rick, and then we'll talk about Rick's business here for a minute, and then we'll get into our food, which is Moe's Pizza, of course. A little extra plug for
Moe's Pizza.
Rick, it was Isaiah's fault for being late. It's always Isaiah. I blame Isaiah. What's going on, buddy? How are you? Let me see if I can hear you. No, we got to get him off and on and back again. He's been sitting in there too long. It's our fault.
Right.
And my skin looks like
he just has his mic muted.
He's talking.
Yeah, he has to unmute. You have to unmute your mic on the computer. If you click the microphone on the computer. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Sorry about
there
that.
It is.
Yeah, we'll have to start earlier.
It was Isaiah's fault. It was Isaiah's fault. And you know what's funny is I'm taking this.
It's never Isaiah's fault.
Can I play something for you before we get into whatever you want to talk about today? And I know we'll have questions. Anybody in the audience that has questions about finances, we'll answer those as well. Okay. But I want to get into this. It was something that I saw that you had talked about, and I want to give you a little piece of it. Are you familiar with this Susan Kokinda?
Yes.
From Promethean. I think she has a little bit of the same take as you. So I wanted to get that out there. It's clip number 14. Just play like a minute of it, Isaiah, if you don't mind. I want to get Rick's response to it. I was trying to figure out if you have the
clock and asking if bombs would fall. Well, a bomb did fall, but it was in the Senate Banking Committee where Fed Chair nominee Kevin Warsh said this.
And while it's true that inflation is less problematic, meaning the rate of change in prices is less severe than it was some years ago, hardworking Americans are no doubt feeling it. I think that means a regime change in the conduct of policy.
He wants regime change at the Fed. Now, you probably didn't notice that because the press was focused on Senator Pocahontas calling Warsh a sock puppet for Donald Trump. Or you were being drawn into the social media storm about how Iran has Trump over a barrel. So you might have missed what is really going on. But the empire isn't missing it. On April 17th, the executive director of Britain's Chatham House asked this question. Iran, Pope, economy, how many battles can Trump fight at once? The answer is all of them, because they aren't separate battles. They're one war, a war against an imperial regime. Donald Trump knows it, and so does the empire.
That's good, Isaiah.
I'm Susan Kokinda, and I've known it too.
So this is,
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's what you were trying to explain to me one time. I had you on the phone, Rick, and you're like, this is an empire situation, and this might be a little more complicated than you're giving credit to. I think that's what you said to me on the phone. Is that kind of the premise of? I'm not saying you're not even saying this is the truth. You're saying this could be an argument that's being made. Is that what you were thinking? Very similar to her.
Well, I mean, I definitely, as I expand on some of the things that I've talked about in the past, and also in our very long phone calls, sometimes we spend a lot of time on the phone, and it's sometimes even then, even a 3-hour show, we might not be able to cover the expanse of what's going on because it's about 125 years old. But and I'm going to say, I don't think that it's a position or it's an opinion just from where I sit. I think that it's actually what's going on. So
so you've come to a conclusion that you think this is actually happening. I want to hear this. Can you give me that today?
It's not something that I've formed. Let's say this is not something that I formed after Trump became president. This is something that I've been studying since the late 80s, let's say. So for a really long time. And so the idea of empire is really, you could say Britain, a lot of people like to call it the UK now. They changed the name, right? So there's just different things that have gone on, but it really emanates from really the very first assassination that happened in our country's history, which was Alexander Hamilton. He was killed by Aaron Burr, who was basically the founder of Manhattan Bank, right? So he's what they would call the godfather of Wall Street, Aaron Burr. And Aaron Burr was really trying to subvert what we had accomplished in 1776. And then again in 1791, where Alexander Hamilton created literally the foundation for our economy when we were completely broke as a nation. We were struggling to get off the ground. Washington becomes president, and there was no way for our country to move forward. We had massive debt. And so we were still very vulnerable to the British to make another attempt at reconquering, what they had, or finish what they, sort of had to retreat and go back to Britain for a time. But then what did they do? They regrouped. It's not like the enemy went away and said, right, oh, okay, we're going to let those guys just be free. Look at their history. Look at the colonialism and the imperialism of the British Empire, and it never stopped. I mean, they dominated the entire globe. I mean, their peak was 1921. They currently still own like 23% of the planet, surface area of the planet, and they still have 55 commonwealths across the world. So when you think of it in those terms, that amount of control, and you think about somebody like, again, let's just say, you could go back to the very beginning. If you remember when Davos happened last year, right? Or actually earlier this year. So when Trump spoke when Jameson Greer spoke at Davos, he actually laid out the American system of political economy. He actually used those terms, which is not what Alexander Hamilton called it. Later, Henry Clay coined that phrase, which was leading up to the Lincoln presidency and ahead of the Civil War. But there was a fifth column being built within the United States by Britain that was basically the infiltration. The fifth column refers to an infiltration of intelligence and spies and really like people in your bureaucracy, right? So if you have a number of people who work within the government that are friendly to a foreign power, let's call them Anglophiles, then you're going to have trouble getting anything done, right? And if you get too successful, what do? They assassinate you, right? So in the context that, you look through our history and you look through the period between, let's say, 1812 to the Civil War, there was a consistent effort, largely run by Aaron Burr at the head, to create a fifth column, to install people up in the north, and then to bring, even like 2 years before the Civil War started, they moved all of the military equipment down to the south. This is like 2 years before the Civil War started. And so they had friendly people in the government who were like, yeah, let's move all the military, the cannons and the horses and let's build some forts down there. They were fortifying, themselves when we didn't even know that this was about to happen, right? So they were ready to take over, and that was just, let's call it, there was a couple of presidents that died mysteriously before the Civil War. Zachary Taylor and Polk died from. Well, one guy died from eating cherries and stuff like that. It's just like, okay, he ate too many cherries, and maybe
I ate a lot of cherries, and I'm still standing.
Right. So we don't know exactly. We couldn't say for sure those guys were assassinated, but they both had economic legislation sitting on their desks when they died that were American system efforts, right, to return the Hamilton doctrine, let's call it, or what Henry Clay called the American system of political economy. So that was in the early years of our country. The Civil War happens, and Lincoln, is why did that all, occur? And you look at all the things that he was doing, Transcontinental Railroad, that would literally obliterate, Britain's hold on us, because their hold comes from the maritime control. And here we are going to build railroads across the country and create industry, which is what the American system talks about, right? So he had to go. If you imagine a time, instead of him not fulfilling his second term, what if Lincoln had done 2 terms, right? If you think about that, our economic engine was so powerful, even when he died, that we had some of the most explosive growth during the Reconstruction after the Civil War, that we became the marvel of the world. Okay. And so much so that people wanted to copy it. Russia wanted to copy it. Germany wanted to copy it. And when the British see something like that, they don't want to see that happen, because they start to lose their grip over these countries. And you can see it today in many other countries. I mean, just to give you an example, like Burkina Faso, right? It's most people would never know where it is. It's basically like West Africa, and it's right next to Mali and Niger and Nigeria. And these countries were kind of, the UN came in and tried to create an economic model for all of these countries. And they've been pushing back, because that's top down, right? That's the UN trying to control what you're going to do inside your country to produce whatever goods, how you're going to use your resources is going to be controlled by the UN, or should the people of those countries control that? And what happened? Well, AFRICOM turned around and basically said, well, we think that leader is a terrorist, and so we're going to go in there and send some Green Berets or whatever, and we're going to get rid of that guy, right? So these are little disruptions compared to the big disruptions that we've seen, like the assassination of Abraham Lincoln or the assassination of William McKinley. But in between that, the assassination of James Garfield in 1881, the same year he was assassinated, they assassinated the Tsar of Russia, and they assassinated a guy named Benjamin Disraeli. He was poisoned. He was the foreign minister in Britain, and he was pro-American, right? Pro-American system, and he was talking about this stuff. And then they fostered this anarchist movement. They held, this is all in the same year, 1881. They held a anarchist convention in downtown London. And then what were they talking about at the anarchist convention? Well, how to assassinate people, how to murder people. And there's very famous anarchists that you can look back and, I think today, like Antifa or BLM or something like that. These are the same types of movements that it doesn't look like they're decentralized from the government. You don't have to give them orders, right? They're anarchists. So what do anarchists do? They assassinate people. They believe in no government, right? So the idea here is very much, you can look for the periods of disruption. So that period, there were 3 or 4 assassinations in this anarchist convention in 1881. And then they got rid of von Bismarck, in Germany. He was the one who wanted to bring the American system to Germany and build a Berlin to Baghdad railroad. And so he was talking about that. Alexander II in Russia was talking about a Trans-Siberian railroad. This is not coincidental that these guys always get killed by who? Anarchists, right? It's always an anarchist, a lone gunman, right? So I call it the long arc of the lone gunman, because it's this same individual, and you can say he was crazy or he was on medication or whatever, but there are structural things in place to allow these types of people to foster and fester, right? And then you just sort of create the opportunities so that these things can happen.
Do you think that all originates through Great Britain? You think that originates through there? Is that what you're?
100% through Great Britain. It's traceable. You can look at it, and you can look at the history. You can look at what they were writing in books, what they believe, right? And so from the perspective that if we look through the periods of disruption, so you have that, you have Abraham Lincoln, and then you have James Garfield and the Tsar of Russia in that 1881. Then you have what? William McKinley does the same stuff. He's trying to repeat what James Garfield was doing. And they exchange his, they force a different vice president on him at the very end of his campaign before the election. So he, against his will, more or less politically, against his political will, they force a different guy in there. And then guess what happens? He gets assassinated a couple of months into his second term. And then who do they replace him with? Teddy Roosevelt. Right. And you go, okay, what did Teddy, he was the biggest Anglophile we've ever had in our government. He was more or less working at the very behest of the British government. He was.
We have American history ass backwards.
Completely. It's been hidden from us. It's been purposely.
I got to spend more time on this with you because you freak me out when I talk to you about your knowledge, and you just go off the top of your head, which I always find fascinating. But it would make sense based on what I'm starting to understand. I'm new to this. You know, the first time you ever talked to me, you said, Rob, I've been studying this since forever. I mean, and he goes, I heard you talking about it a little bit. That's how we became friends. And then I get on the phone with you and you blow my mind with your knowledge of history and things that are going on in the world. And as I started to study it, Rick, I start to recognize the same thing as you. You're taught the inversion of reality. I mean, if you just look at COVID, I know I drive people nuts with COVID. I understand it. But we were told the exact opposite of what was actually happening. Everything was inverted. Everything was the exact opposite of the way they brought that out to people. If you look at what I say are the wars in the Middle East, we think the aggressors are these Middle Eastern countries. And I see the aggressor now as being more Israel and the United States. And if you say that to people, they're so outside of their minds because it just fractures everything that they believe to be true. But you can't get conversations with these people because it's so foreign. The thought process is so foreign to them. So when you say that this is the inversion, that our history is the inversion of truth, I now buy into that. I now say, yeah, that's probably exactly what's going on, because it seems as though everything that we're taught from our schools and our government ultimately turns out to be the opposite of reality. So
yeah, and just think that
I once said that was crazy, Rick. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. The people think of the word, the term deep state, and that's kind of a newer term, really. And I never really adopted that term because it sounds conspiratorial. It sounds, but truly what it is it's a fifth column, and the fifth column was actually coined by a guy named Mirio. He was one of the generals during this the Spanish Civil War. I'll remember his name in a second here, but he basically was marching into Madrid with his troops, and he saw 4 columns of the enemy, right, of their army, and he made a comment to one of his other, maybe one of his colonels or something, and he said, "I see these 4 armies assembling, but there's a 5th column." And so ever since then, and he was referring to the infiltration of the turncoats and the pretend friendlies that would be there to subvert you once you get to the point of taking over that city. And so if you understand how long ago, how far back this goes, I mean, it goes back to the 1650s or so. So this is not something that just goes away, right? It is something that there have been periods throughout our history as a country that people have tried to turn the tables and create something for the people, which would be the individual being sovereign, right? Instead of the monarch being sovereign. Right. And they last for 20 years or 30, maybe at the most. What I would call 1881 would be a coup d'etat, right, with all those assassinations. But then I would say the coup de grace, which is kind of like or a fait accompli, they say in French, where it's sort of like the final
1913.
goal. It was that they were able to put in place the Rhodes Trust, right? And so that comes directly out of Oxford. That comes from Cecil Rhodes. And so if you look through our government since 1902, he died in 1902, his Rhodes Trust, I'm going to pull up a map here.
While you're pulling it up, can you answer a question for me?
Sure.
When you said, which president said, you said they changed the vice president on him and then he got assassinated?
Well, that's happened a couple times. So it would be James or William McKinley was forced to take on Teddy Roosevelt, and they were really not enemies; they were political enemies. They didn't agree at all, and so, but at the very end, he succumbed to political pressure to bring Teddy Roosevelt. And there's just such a like you said earlier, the inversion that you've seen, and that you started to look the other way. If you think of Teddy Roosevelt, and there's another person, the conservatives think of Teddy Roosevelt as the heroic figure, similar to maybe Churchill, right?
Yep.
But Teddy Roosevelt first. And in the Roosevelt room at the White House, the Republican presidents historically put Teddy Roosevelt's picture. And then the Democrats put Franklin Roosevelt's picture.
Right. And you think Franklin Roosevelt was a much better president than he's given credit for by the Republicans?
Well, Democrat and Republican is really not it.
I'm with you. I got
it. So what that's what they call a fallacious dichotomy or a false dichotomy, where it's just been put there for us to pick from between the two or whatever. Right. That emanates right out of Britain as well. So the point of it all, though, is that McKinley was going to do an American system approach, which really looks like it's anti-free trade. The British government has dominated the globe for all these years, for centuries, based on free trade. And you'll see even Trump in the past has said it's anything but free, right? That's the thing about it. It starts with the word free. So if it's free in today's society, what do we say to ourselves? If I can get an app and it's free, then I'm the product, right? So that applied then, and it applies for the economics. And I think that the idea of economics is underlying all of the things that we see happening. I mean, this is just tentacles, and the where do these people get this from, right? And this is just a resurgence of ideas that were hidden. They were pulled back out of history books, because it's hard to find a history book that talks about the American system of political economy, even though it was the most prevalent thing in the 19th century as far as the economic system that was trying to be promoted, which was really only the ideas that were built by Alexander Hamilton, Henry Clay, Matthew Carey. These are all people that were involved in the founding of the country. And then Henry Carey became, the Secretary of State under Lincoln. You had all of, pardon me?
Of course I knew that.
Well, it's just that once you start to, I've sort of have a different opinion about Dan Bongino of late. I just don't know what to think after he became the FBI director.
Did you used to like him like me? I used to be a big fan.
I listened to him every single day for years, and only because he was the only person that was I had very much known before even the inauguration that there was a hoax that was being, there was an op that was being run against Trump from the time he started running, and even a little bit before that. If you go back to very late 2015, there was stuff happening, and I wrote articles that I posted that people could see, and I posted the time on those where, and so he was the only person that actually was talking about Russia and the hoax aspect of that. And one of the reason I brought him up is just he used to say something which to me has always proved to be the case, especially where these intelligence things happen, or when you look at the long arm of government, right? And you go, okay, and he would say, remember the names. And that was like a mantra for him. Remember the names, remember the names. And so, if you remember the people's names, you'll see the same person. They might have been prosecuted during Iran-Contra, for example, like Elliot Abrams or somebody like that. Yep. And he goes away for a little while, and then he pops back up. Ollie North, went away for a little while, but he was always there. And then all of a sudden you see his face again. And I remember getting very upset, about Iran-Contra when I was a teenager, right? And it was just like, this is crazy. And how could this have even happened? I like this guy, Reagan, and really
You think he even knew? Because I thought that was run through Bush.
Yeah, no, that was all a dupe. I mean, every time you see disruption, you have to look underneath and go, why is this disruption happening within the executive branch, let's say?
Can I ask you this? I got it. This was the question I was going to ask you about the shot, because it just, in the back of my memory, I think I heard something, and I want to see if you can verify it. So Reagan, supposedly, when Bush became the vice president for Reagan, I heard that Roger Stone said he was involved in that whole process, that Reagan did not like Bush. Bush did not like Reagan, apparently. Right before the convention in 1980, they go into a back room with a bunch of a bunch of political people and the big money behind the Republican Party. And they came out of the room, and it was decided that H.W. Bush would be the vice president for Reagan. And then he gets, in March, right after he gets elected, right? January 20th, he becomes the president of the United States. In March, he gets shot by a son of a Bush donor, right? Was Walker Bush, the name Walker, does that come from the Crown?
Well, all of those guys do. I mean, they're, if you go back that far, I mean, they're either going to be, they're emanating out of what's called the Fount of Honors. So they might be knighted, or they'd be given some dignified, tap from the Crown, right? And so
secret society stuff, that would make sense, because
I don't like to call it secret society, because it's not really a secret, right? It is. I mean,
secret, and they keep the fact that they're all hanging together. I agree with you. I know what you're saying, but just in the sense that these people they're affiliated, but you don't really know that they're affiliated.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that if you think of Skull and Bones, over at Yale, and what are they required to do? You were earlier in your show today, you were talking about Freemasons, I think, and people think of that as, lots of people join the Masons just as a networking group now. Right. And they're never going to, get to the 33rd level or whatever. It's just more about seeing if they can find, the one person who might, more or less.
I want to be king. I'm signing up tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. I had somebody who, was a mentor of mine, and he was a Mason. And I was like, and I knew about the Masons, but so there's just all kinds of strange stuff like that. And so we have to, take it for what it's worth, in the sense that these societies, although they might look watered down today, some of them are not at all. So you think of the Rhodes Scholars, who, you have to be a certain kind of person to be tapped as a Rhodes Scholar. I was going to show you
Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar.
Pardon me?
Clinton was a Rhodes Scholar.
Clinton was the first executive, but he had 35 Rhodes Scholars in his administration. When Obama became president, he took those Rhodes Scholars, most of them, and put them in his administration. So
what's the tie to so many dual citizens with Israel? Do you have any sense of that?
I haven't really. I mean, I'm going to say, I'm not sure. I think that it might be that it started with something more along the lines of, just say, hey, I'm aligned with you. I'm not really sure if I haven't looked into that deep enough, right? That's one of the Gordian knots or whatever that if we were to try to untie it, it's very difficult, so I think in this case, well, it's just power structures that have been in place, and so I'm not really sure. It could just be a tap, a tap on the shoulder, get that passport, and then we'll know, your allegiance. That's all. And whether that's good or bad is for other people to decide. What I try to do is illustrate the structures. And so for some reason, did my screen start showing?
I haven't shown anything yet, just your face.
Huh.
You trying to share it?
I can pull it up whenever you're ready. I think you have you have the video on your screen right now, though.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, is it there?
Yeah, it's right now. The screen you're sharing is the video. There we go. Okay.
Now, can you see the maps?
Yep. There we go. Good to go.
All right. So this is what Cecil Rhodes envisioned before he died, right before he died. So this is the globe, with the red being, in point of fact, this is reality. This is like 1921 right here. right? So obviously America was not, or no, that's a little earlier. Sorry. There's so this is 1921. And so you can kind of see, this is the British Empire in 1921. So obviously America was not conquered. Cecil Rhodes died, and what he wanted to have happen before he died and what he put into the Rhodes Trust was, I want America to be recaptured as one of the principal things in his thing and in his estate, in his trust. And so look at all the red that he wanted to see, you know, and so that's just not the case, right? That didn't happen yet, but doesn't mean they haven't stopped trying. And then if we go to what I was saying before, I mean, on some level, you know, we need to get to someday here, we'll talk about finance.
How did they conquer us, though? What would that look like?
Pardon me?
If they were to conquer us, what would that look like? I would think with our military, that's not even possible. So it'd have to be.
No, this is not about, this has got nothing to do with military. I mean, honestly, militaries are practically speaking ineffective. And what they have reconquered us already. It's already happened.
And how do they do that? What's the process? I mean, what do you mean?
Through the banking system. Gotcha. Yeah, it's all money driven, which is when you look at what Trump is trying to do, and people can, you know, like fall on either side of the ultimate outcomes and the ultimate motivations and what's in Trump's mind, right? That part we'll never know until it happens or till he reveals it. But when you look at his actions, he's doing a lot of stuff that you'll see on this open system, right? So he is against free trade. There is no that has never changed. What is the cure for free trade is protection.
That's so tariff.
The protection, which means you throw up a tariff to stop somebody from flooding your country with cheap goods, right? And Britain did this to its own people. Like they got rid of the farmer.
He never got that through, though, right? Wasn't that shot down? No. Howard Lutnick is the one who wrote the tariff legislation. He's the one that bet on the tariff legislation, and then it got shot down.
The idea of the protection, though, is only if you're not successful in you put up normally you put up the tariff, and then it's you know, our bureaucracy is so much bigger than it was back in these days. It's harder to, and it's more muddy, right? We can't really see all of the different things that are going on, but the idea of protection is very much the American system of political economy. I'll just make this a little bit.
Gotcha. Isaiah, if you have to go ahead. I'm going to stay on with Rick for a little bit longer. I'll shut it down on this end.
So, you know, this is truly what
you'll have to reshare his screen whenever he wants it.
Oh, when you take off?
He'll have to reshare his screen. How do I do it?
It's added to the stage, but you're going to have to know how to remove it and go back and forth. Do you know how to do that?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm
not sure what you guys are going to do then.
You want to just leave it like this? We'll just leave it and talk like this until we're finished.
Sure.
Yeah, just leave it like this.
Yeah, because I can just scroll back and forth, and we could, you know. So this is. I mean, these are very basic. Thanks, Isaiah. Anyway, these are very basic things.
Lay this up for me so I can see it a little bit better, because I'm interested in this. This is I would like to be promoting what Donald Trump is doing. I would prefer that. Let me see what you got here.
So it's the individual is sovereign compared to the monarch, unalienable rights. So, you know, that's what they put into our Declaration and into our Constitution. And you see the difference. It's instead of being like chattel, which would be animals that can talk, right? Cows that can talk. We have the ability to determine our future, right? Instead of our rights are for sale, we have natural rights. The resources can be increased. Well, what do you see all over the closed system? A zero-sum game, win-lose. If you know, there's fragility, there's competition, there's limits, absolute limits on growth. They adapt. We have to adapt to scarcity, right? We haven't drilled very deep in the Earth's crust. I mean, it's when you think of our ability to experience things. Thomas Malthus predicted in 1799 that our level of food production would fall compared to the population. And he just said that they would mathematically increase at different rates. And so we would all starve to death. So that's really the first climate change person that existed that we know of, at least. I mean, there were others before him, but he put out the economic theory of population. And then he started talking about the fact that we have to just restrict population. So it's no wonder that we still talk about that today, because we're in a closed system. It's unipolar. So you have one hegemonic, like a head that's running everything. And it's really the British Empire. And we're just a tool of the British Empire for the last 125 years or 24 years, since 1902, which was the coup de grace, is what I call it. And then you've seen the Rhodes Trust just be rolled out. And you've had periods where, like the next period after that, there was a short period with Warren Harding, who tried to bring that up. But then Roosevelt in the 1930s clobbered the banks, threw people in jail, and made it illegal for them to speculate. And the only reason that it's happening now and has been happening for the last 25 years is because they got rid of Glass-Steagall in 1999 under Clinton, who wanted to change there were 6 assassination attempts against Clinton.
I know people that know Bill Clinton personally, and I hear so many bad, I'm a conservative, right? So most people in my circles, they think that Bill Clinton is the worst person in the world. I know somebody that knows him personally, that knows him, and could not speak higher of him. And he's a conservative. He said, Bill Clinton is not the person that you think he is. He was destroyed by the media, destroyed by the press, but he is not that person. That was
destroyed by Britain. So from the very beginning, and the media is part of that, right? So there were media reports about Monica Lewinsky that were going on in Britain way before we even heard about it here. And so, when he first became president, he was talking about changing our monetary system, which is Keynesian. This is all Keynesian. It's free trade. It's cheap labor. It's low standard of living, consumer services instead of what? Agro-industrial production, manufacturing, and creating trade surpluses. We've got a trade deficit that, go back to the 1980s, and who was complaining the loudest about our trade deficit? It was Donald Trump when he was in his 30s or whatever.
Yeah.
So you think about those things, and then you look at what Susan Kokinda was talking about. And, sometimes I think certain people, I listen to her on an occasion, but I think maybe I don't want to say she's blindly saying all these things, but I think that it's too narrow, her focus. I think she needs to look wider, only because, and again, it sounds more like a mouthpiece than maybe full reality, but what she says is true. And so all of these things that go on, and we look at,
has this been talked about in open conversation, Rick, through the years? Is this something that I missed? Because when I heard Susan Kokinda and your philosophy on what this empire versus nation state looks like, I've never really heard this conversation discussed anywhere. Not in college. I don't remember ever talking about this. This is kind of stuff that
right here. I was telling somebody yesterday that our fentanyl war, is just a new iteration governed by empire. So Britain is still, and what's nice about this app or whatever you call it on my computer is I can actually go through some of the pages here, and you can look at the first opium wars in the 1830s that Britain was just basically crushing the Chinese. They were flooded. They were actually getting paid from India in opium in exchange for the cotton that they got from the South, from the American South. They went and so the way that Britain likes to see things is that
they're trading heroin for cotton.
They were trading opium for cotton, and but literally they like to see, like if you look at the Caribbean, what's the principal crop? It's sugarcane. They don't do anything but sugarcane. The South was doing cotton, right? And so they like to see one crop coming out of a particular colony, and then they deal all over the globe. And so they would basically give the cotton to India in exchange for opium because they didn't have any money there. And then they would buy the textiles that for very little from India, and they would sell those worldwide. But meanwhile, they'd take that opium and they dumped it on China and got everybody addicted. And so when you start to look at the history of just the drug trade alone and the banking system funnels, there's so much money laundering and there's so many things going on. I mean, some of the things that Trump is doing, people don't realize. He's the Muslim Brotherhood, for example. If you go to the White House website and pull up Trump's announcement on the Muslim Brotherhood, that's the root of terrorism. But truly, what else is it? It's fundamentally their source of income to run how do they run all these ops? How do they have all these intelligence people? How do they do all this secret stuff with secret money? Well, it's drugs and arms trafficking. It's terrorism, and they're basically skimming off the global energy resources. They're all over Africa. I mean, Cecil Rhodes killed many hundreds of thousands of people in Africa when he was alive. And what's the thing that Thomas Malthus said in his economic theory about population? War, plague, and famine, which is stasis. That's let's, instead of saying forever war, let's say that it's forever conflict. Stasis is internal conflict. And so the banking and the drug trades, this all puts money into where do you think all the gold went? You know, this Libya doctrine.
He was going to go check out Fort Knox again. Trump just said it recently that they want to find out about Fort Knox. Remember when they were talking about that and it just went away?
Right. But what I mean is, like, when they bombed the crud out of Libya, they had 140 tons of gold. Where'd that go? Where did the gold go in Germany when Hitler basically went into Czechoslovakia and other countries too? He stole their gold, and where did it go? It went to Britain. It went into their, went into their bank, and that's where.
Why would Hitler steal gold and then it ended up in Britain?
Well, if you want to do a whole show on that, we can. But it basically, he was installed by J.P. Morgan and all of the British banking, front people.
Right. Well, the Bush family was in the banking business, and they were behind Hitler.
Bush, J.P. Morgan, the Ford, the Ford Foundation, all these people, the Harriman brothers. These are people that you can actually trace from the early 1800s and Aaron Burr. You can trace that all the way to the Harriman brothers in the early 1920s, 30s, and you get into the Dulles brothers. And basically the importation of the OSS into America, that infiltration that was under Truman, as soon as Roosevelt was dead, because that's another install. A vice president install was Truman was not Roosevelt's pick. That was thrust upon him at the convention itself, like hijacked. So he was planning to nominate Wallace in the convention, and during the convention there was somebody threw off some firecrackers or something, and everybody looked the other way, and then they started voting for Truman, and then it was too quickly. It took over the whole stadium or whatever, the whole convention center. So it was too late to get Wallace in there, and that was engineered. And because then Roosevelt dies, he was in pretty good health. His son actually says, I think they killed him. He talked to Stalin at the time and Stalin said, these people, the banking cartel killed your dad. So, people go, well, why would you believe Stalin? Right. Look at that guy or whatever. But it's like, why would you believe these people who are operating out of Britain. I would believe Stalin before I would believe the others. And Stalin was working with Roosevelt to try to create an American system in Russia or, the Soviet Union. And while, FDR was in his fourth term.
Yeah.
So in other words, he had another 4 years to go. Had he lived, what would have happened? Maybe he would have done a more complete job. And people complain about the emergency bank. He had to do certain things to get rid of this stuff because our system was collapsed. He also put in Bretton Woods. So, he created a stable fixed rate system for our dollars. And then, what happened? They wanted to get rid of that too. It took them until 1971 to get rid of it and to install the petrodollar, right? So there's a lot of stuff that you have to kind of look underneath and just imagine what if everything was inverted. And so, I think that it's interesting that Obama had Teddy Roosevelt's picture in the Roosevelt room.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't have Roosevelt's picture because he was a Democrat, but he had Teddy Roosevelt's picture. Right.
And didn't he have who was the one that he had removed? Wasn't there a statue that was removed or a bust that was removed and everybody made a big deal about it? He sent, it was the guy from the UK. They sent his bust back to him. Winston Churchill.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
what was that all about? I forgot about that.
Well, I mean, Winston Churchill was quite the racist. So, I mean, it could, I don't actually remember.
Race. That makes sense. Okay.
But I mean, you have guys in, like an example of something like that is in the Ukraine. You could see an interview of somebody, that's being, in the government currently. And there's a bust in the background of Stefan Bandera, who was a Nazi, who murdered just so many. They weren't. I mean, and some of these people are Jewish. So people go, well, how could he be Jewish and be a Nazi? But they don't hate Jews; they hate Russians, right? So, but they could still be a Nazi, right? And Keynes, who took over our economy in the 1920s, professed the benefit of a Nazi regime, of a fascist regimes in Italy and Germany. And he said that those kinds of regimes, it's easier to supplant economic principles on top of people in a fascist society, right? So he made comments like that. He was the treasurer of the Eugenics Society. And then he was a lifelong member of the, Malthusian, the Thomas Malthus. So when you think of who these people are, what they profess, and you go, what are they likely going to do, right? And you can say the same thing about like when Jameson Greer spoke at Davos. Everybody should look up that speech. It's on YouTube. It's like 20 minutes long.
Which one?
It's from January when he went. Jameson Greer. He's the Treasury trade representative. And he went and spoke at Davos. And you could just put in Jameson Greer Davos speech, and you'll find it on YouTube. It's 20 minutes long, and he's going to give you 20 minutes for the first time, maybe in decades and decades, maybe 100 years. It's going to be somebody from our government going up there and talking about this American system of political economy. And I mean, he does an incredibly good job at outlining what it is. There's a little bit of a weird thing at the end where he literally starts talking about Keynes. So again, there's kind of this thing that I'm noticing where Trump does the same thing, where they'll, he'll adopt like preservation doctrine in the Middle East, which excludes certain things like it isn't really designed for peace. It sounds like a good thing, preservation doctrine. It's really to align people in such a way that they keep fighting. That's a neocon strategy. He's adopting this preservation doctrine, but he's changing it a little bit behind the scenes. And interestingly enough, he's getting friends of his instead of State Department officials to go in and negotiate with these leaders. And he's given them certain parameters, like you can agree to this, this, and this, and under no circumstances are you going to agree to these three other things. I will never agree to those three things, but if you can get all these other things, then we can make a deal with these people. But he's not telling people in the State Department what he's doing, right? He's letting some of his closely held friends, and people look at that and they think, oh, I'm so suspicious because Trump is a billionaire and all of the different things. And on the surface, it might look that way, but I think he's trying to make things look, at least creating an ambiguity in the way that people can see it, like it could go either way, so that he can win over his enemies. Like he's keeping his enemies out of the room, but publicly he's talking about the fact that, he's doing this preservation doctrine to keep his enemies close. And so, I absolutely keep my head on a swivel. I want to stay frosty, to use some of those terms, where I'm going to make sure I'm very alert to what everybody's doing, including Trump. But I'm, if I were to just dive into this thing without any hope whatsoever, I mean, thankfully I'm a Christian. I have this isn't my permanent residence here on this earth, and so whatever is happening, and we have this eschatology that's happening, which is referring to, the end of times, and we have people that are really keen on, you think of the four horsemen, and you think of all those things as a Christian, and the Jews have a prophecy as well. So I mean, these things are a little scary, when you start looking at, what could possibly happen when you have people who are committed to the end of the world, and there's multiple factions of those people that are aligned. And then you have people like us who think that, peace and prosperity are really our birthright, and that we should have these individual rights. And so from the standpoint of economics, how does any of this relate to economics? It's everything whatsoever that I've spoken about is built on the economic models that we just talked about. And so what we've been given as a choice is either communism, like the collectivism that says you have to just focus on the whole in spite of, and in the absence of the individual, right? So that's communist collectivism. And then the other one is the libertarian Austrian model, which you have a lot of people, then the Birch Society and people like that, where it's really anarchists, right? That's really the end goal. The Ayn Rand aspect is the individual is it, and there is no quarter for the collective, for the group, or for the whole. And what Henry Carey and what Henry Clay talked about were the harmony of interest, so that you would actually create a harmony between the two, so that you can have your individual rights without letting go of the collective, like making sure that the whole has to still be healthy. The model that we've been that's been thrust was never really there's not two choices. The middle choice, which is where we harmonize everything, right? And that's what led to massive prosperity, when everyone was having high wages and high quality of life. And anytime you see, whether it's a president of the United States or the leader of some other country, could be some country in Africa like Kwame Nkrumah in the 1960s. Kennedy's first phone call to a foreign leader was to Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, which is that West African area there. And why? Because he wanted to create a Pan-African economic plan. I mean, if you had any reasons to assassinate Kennedy, I mean, there were many, right? Because he was going after everything that was important to empire.
Do you think Kennedy was one of the good guys, trying to be one of the good guys?
I think 100%. I mean, otherwise he wouldn't be dead.
Well, I got a good question. Jeff says, what does Rick think the future holds for Ibrahim Traore? Who is that? The head of the Burkina Faso? You know what that is?
I'm not sure were you looking on my map here?
No, this is on the screen. Can you see it?
Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in Africa. I don't have my African map on this screen here, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on there right now. You can kind of see where I'm talking about. See Burkina Faso, Ghana, Nigeria, Niger, and Mali, and there's a couple countries over there. But principally, those 3 or 4 countries are trying to assert the American system. And so they're being labeled terrorists, and they're being, infiltrated by Green Berets. And, we have a lot of bad guys in our military that are, as we already know, a lot of generals came out against their commander in chief many, many times. But, when you start looking at it, I think in all respects, this is what we see on a day-to-day basis. And down here, there's a massive amount of corruption. And it all comes down to, it's driven by you have to have money to support these wars. And you have to have an ability to keep that flow. I've got to zoom out just a bit so I can kind of see where I'm at here. I mean, this thing with AI AI companies and data centers and private credit, it's this, there's going to be some bag holders. You've got, like you always talk about, you've been talking about, I should say, MMTLP as this group of people that I would refer to. I don't mean it in a derogatory term towards them, right? But our system is predatory, and it looks at people out there, like I was saying earlier, as these chattel, right? So if we can get a bunch of investors into an elevator and tell them that it's going to be going up, and they all get into the elevator, and then they get up about a certain amount, and then we cut the cable as we rise up, and we can, get them to offload some of their money to the wealth transfer that might happen. And then we cut the cable, right? And we call that they look at it as like a bag holder. Who can we get to hold the bag on these investments that are good right this second, and we're going to make some money, but as soon as it's not good anymore, we got to cut we got to get out. And
have you seen all these stories, Rick? Speaking of that, have you seen all these stories coming out of Glenn Greenwald was just talking about it. Trump's getting hammered from the right and the left, saying that he's manipulating the stock market for the benefit of his family and his wealth. Have you seen these stories? Do you buy into those? Have you looked at that at all?
Well, I mean, I've looked at it's Scott Bessent that's doing the manipulation mostly. I mean, Trump's not big enough in terms of an investor, to manipulate the market as much as our Treasury Department and the players that are involved. But if you think of what they say about Warsh, right, that he was supposed to come in there and drop rates, and everybody on this, I built these over the weekend. These are 2 diagrams. This is private credit, and you've got, like, all of a sudden, and this last month is like May has been very busy with respect to seeing some cracks happening with our money system. And part of the reason we're seeing it now is because the rates are being held. They're increasing. The Treasury rate really flew up there, and the 10-year is 4.5 roughly, or somewhere just hovering above and below 4.5, and the 30-year is hovering right just below or just above 5. And that
traditionally, that's not terrible though, Rick. When I bought my first house in 1999. The interest rate on my first home was 8.2%.
Yeah, but things are a little different right now. So what's happening is there was a really low interest rate environment for many years. So they were forcing, it was more or less zero, right?
Right.
So all of these companies, Blackstone, Ares, Apollo, JP Morgan, this is a massive conglomerate. And remember, this is JP Morgan, the financial institution. But who was the founder? It was JP Morgan, the man, who, for all intents and purposes, was a scoundrel and a criminal. And he supported, he gave copper and steel and just every resource you can think of, concrete, even slavery, to the Nazi regime in the 1920s and 30s, right? So they were funding. I mean, and not just Morgan. It was everybody, right? And Morgan didn't own the whole bank. He only owned about a third of the bank. So there were other people. The Rothschilds owned the rest, right? And so you have the British government funding the rise of Hitler, making sure that he got elected, right? So that was what was really going on, and they were giving him resources so that he could build infrastructure. Who do you think built they were broke. The Deutschmark was worthless. It was less than worthless. You'd need to take a wheelbarrow full of Deutsche Marks to the bakery, and by the time you got there, the bread would be more expensive, right?
The Weimar Republic story. So what was the deal? How, just from a history standpoint, what he turns on the British after what?
That's what's the interesting part. So after, like, hey, you're a junior partner, is kind of the way it's been relayed to me. So I'm just repeating, some of the people that I talked to about this stuff. But so they made, all the big bankers and the American industrialists and the British government, they make Hitler a junior partner in this whole scheme. He starts to build all of his infrastructure. He starts to amass
highways, everything.
And everything. Right. And then he starts to get some of his generals who are telling him, hey, you know what? You don't have to be a junior partner. You can be a full partner. Why don't you, instead of, the guidance that he was given at the beginning was, once you're ready, we want you to go straight to Moscow. So that was his marching orders, was we want you to attack Russia. Russia, as you and I have talked about in the past with like the heartland theory, has always been the prize, right? So that's the central power structure because of all the resources on the globe. And he who controls, the world island, which is Russia, basically, and China too, but it's mostly Russia, controls the world. So that's really the doctrine. And so as you look, it's a manifest destiny doctrine too. Like, we're destined, it is our birthright to contain and dominate the entire world. It's not just the one continent, it's everything. And so when you start to think about that, and then he goes to Czechoslovakia and he starts invading other countries instead, because he sees that this is, this greater, idea of Germany. And, if you want to kill some chickens, do you get a little old lady to go out and start breaking the necks of her chickens, or do you get a pit bull and just let it loose in the chicken coop? You know what I'm saying? So it's sort of like that. And they were looking for a bulwark as well to kind of protect themselves from Russia. So they imagined that, this would be the guy. And as he became more powerful, he turned the tables. And so then they had to kind of say, okay, well, I guess we got to get rid of him. And so then, that's when they...
Fascinating.
So Churchill was very involved in that. You can look at, different documentation that came about in like June of 1939. Hitler's trying to create a peace agreement with Britain, and all he wanted was basically the parts of Poland that were taken away. So he's like, I just want those parts of our country back. And instead, they deep sixed him or whatever. And there's lots of evidence that, people say it's conspiracy. There is a lot of evidence with paperclip in the later 1940s that all those guys we know that tons of Nazis were moved across to different places like Argentina or wherever. That's fact. That's something we can see in those.
Do you think that the political party Nazi, just if somebody says they were in the Nazi party, does that automatically make them hate Jews? I just don't understand the time frame, because now I'm starting to question history just a little bit. But when you hear Nazi, the first thing you think of is, the Holocaust and all Nazi party members hated Jews. Yeah. Was that like a known thing at the time, or is that just the way it's evolved?
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, it on some level, yes, it wasn't known, but it was known internally from an intelligence perspective. Imagine all these people that run the CIA at the beginning, they were all OSS. I mean, they basically came from the City of London and right out of Chatham House and all of these places, and infiltrated into the administration, because that's literally the executive branch, right? And Truman was you know, just a pawn. I mean, he admitted to himself openly that, you know, he was the dumbest president that ever, you know, was to sit in the Oval Office. He said that himself. I'm just a farmer, you know, and so they took advantage of that. They told him what to do. He did all those things, and then he dropped the bomb as well, you know. And so those were all the things that they wanted to do to show the Soviet Union and really to create the Cold War. That was literally planned out before the end of World War II, was that we were going to instigate a Cold War with the Soviet Union, after the idea that, okay, well, since the Hitler thing didn't work, we're going to have to create a fifth column inside the, you know, the administration and get rid of Roosevelt and undo everything that he did, which took 50 years, but still to get everything out, it took him 50 years to undo all that stuff. But basically for what? Not for our benefit. I mean, what he was doing, what Roosevelt was doing, was for our benefit. Meanwhile, this fifth column did all of this stuff for the benefit of, you know, a foreign government. I mean, more or less, and the empire. And so when you think of, I don't think that they would have tried to keep it secret if they wanted everybody to know that we moved all those Nazis into our science labs and into our rocket factories and into our nuclear, you know, engineering, and then, you know, took. Why do you think we have all those? I mean, if you look at the stealth bomber, you go back and it's right off of the blueprint of a particular, the flying wing that was created by, you know, the either Messerschmitt or Fock. There were a couple of airplane designers. Focke-Wulf, you know, was one brand, and you had different airplane designers that were creating, you know, like the first jet was a German plane. So, you know, when you start to look at those types of engineering accomplishments, we want those guys. We don't want to kill them. We don't want to, that's right. Like, you know, we want to learn from all of that.
Right.
And even the experimentation and the stuff that we see currently with all the different varieties of experimentation, these are just the similar kinds of structural things that were built back then to, you know, to produce information that would harm people because we wanted to harm them, right? Those people wanted to harm other people.
Right. I got a question for you. Somebody says, do you believe that World War I started with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, or was it planned many years in advance with individuals like Cecil Rhodes and Alfred Milner and the Milner and the Milner Group?
Yeah, the Milner Group. And I would say that if I were to pick a date, the World War I, the beginnings of World War I started back in 1871 or so. And you can look at some of the movements of Edward VII. He became king, and then he was working with various alliances within Europe, and he was trying to align Germany and Russia against, you know, just various countries. Like he wanted to get Russia and France, actually, to attack Germany, and Bismarck knew that that was the case. So he worked with the Russian leader to try to get him to and he was doing it secretly behind Wilhelm was the younger Wilhelm was the leader at the time, and he was a goof. You know, it wasn't really he liked to wear military uniforms, but he was not like a significant leader. He was more concerned about, you know, how he presented to the public, and so Bismarck was working with Russia to try to create an alliance, almost again like realism, where, look, if we can create an alliance, then I'll have at least some kind of a security guarantee from Russia, so that if I get attacked by France, you'll help me. And so he kept Germany out of war for like 10 years, and he eventually gets sacked. The one guy died and then took over. But meanwhile, Edward was still conspiring across Europe. And you can look at the various alliances, the Austro-Hungarian alliances, and they brought in various people just to try to keep that conflict kind of always present, that there was a threat. And they instigated all of this stuff down in the Balkans. And so, that's very typical for modern history was teaching people that what started World War I? Oh, the assassination of Ferdinand, right? And so that's what just you learn. I mean, I learned that, right? And then
that's what they taught in school.
And then they pull away from the history books all of the stuff that led. I mean, it didn't just, what was going on in the Balkans that, made that such a flashpoint, right? Like a powder keg. And it would only take one assassination of one guy to spread across the entire continent. No, they created all kinds of stasis in a lot of different regions, and most particularly the Balkans at the time. And the same group of just anarchists were all over. They were in Russia, they were in the Balkans, they were across Europe, and they wanted to see no government at all. So when they would see a leader, and they were whipped up into furies in various places. And so it's just a matter of like, hey, anything that goes off, any little bomb that goes off is going to be,
that's the catalyst,
enough to be the catalyst to start that. And so and then Teddy Roosevelt, when he was conspiring with King Edward VII before he became president, and then when he became president at the death over the body, let's say over the dead body of William McKinley, you get Teddy Roosevelt, and he's going around like attacking countries like Panama. I mean, the whole reason it was the talk softly and carry a big stick guy. And so, he developed all that. King Edward just woefully, he died before he could see the benefit of, he died before the beginning of World War I. But in the year or two, right around the beginning of World War I, there were no less than like 5 or 6 assassinations across all the way up into Russia. And so it wasn't just one assassination. There were like a lot. We just don't know. We don't hear about those people, right?
They tell the story they tell the story the way they want to tell it. Rick, I gotta roll. I gotta go eat with my wife, and I gotta get you on. We gotta get you on like a show after me. Like I'll do a show, and then maybe you could control an hour. Because I think you have so many things that you can run through your head. I was joking about you with a friend last night. I said, I get Rick on. And I said, I'll look up and it'll be 2 hours later. And Rick and I are still rolling. I said, I'm sometimes up till midnight talking to Rick, because this is why I'm fascinated by your knowledge of history. I really am. I thought I knew a little bit about history till I started talking to you, and I don't know anything about history. I mean, literally nothing. So I got to get you on again. How do people find you if they want to do business with you? Because I haven't even done your live read yet.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of risk out there, and I do risk management. So I'm a risk manager. And there's a lot of stuff coming down the pike. Our company is called Carrington Financial. Caring for your future is our goal. And truly that is our goal. I mean, I really mean that. And so my email is rick@yourcaringadvisor.com. And my cell phone is 314-671-0525.
Have you noticed my wife's been a lot nicer to you lately? Have you noticed that?
What's that?
Have you noticed my wife's been a lot nicer to you lately?
I mean, she's always nice. So.
She was showing me what our money's done since you got a piece of it. She sent me a text and she goes, "Have you seen this?" And it was 401k since you touched it. I go, "No way." I mean, it's up 40% in 6 months.
Yeah, if somebody's not up around obviously if somebody's aggressive, then you should have a 30% or 25, going back a year. If you're not, then, you need to call me. But also,
our line, she's been doing this for 15 years. Our line, like if you look at the graph, is very steady, ups, downs, a little bit up, a little bit down, steady, steady, steady. We gave you the money and it went straight up like a machine. I'm not kidding you. I mean, I got to give you great credit for it because we don't know what we're doing. We just leave it in.
That I mean, what I would have to say is past performance is not an indicator of future results, right?
Yep.
But I will say that we're coming up to the stuff that I have sitting here on the screen right now is the canaries in the coal mine. And these things are there's going to be a rug pulled. These guys are running because of the way that the treasuries are staying higher. These guys borrowed money based on really, really low borrowing rates. And now they can't refinance. I mean, these are floating rates when you have private credit. It's hard money, right? And so they're having to do these continuation vehicles, which is to just repackage the debt and try to get new investors on what looks like a new deal. And they keep doing that. Now it's like continuation vehicle squared. And so they're doing a bunch of stuff to try to stay ahead. And they were hoping that when Warsh took over, that he was going to cut rates. And my suspicion, and I kind of knew this because his history was always that way. If you look at some of the stuff that he did when he was just a member back in the day, and he resigned because they wanted to do quantitative easing. So in other words, he took a principled behavioral action and left because he didn't like what they were doing. And he did that, in my mind, that was the correct way to behave or to act in that instance. But what everyone thought is, he's gonna be more agreeable to Trump. Well, most people saying that aren't really sure what Trump's doing, or they don't even know at all.
I think that's the issue. I think that's where you're coming from. Someone in the app just said, I must have missed how Trump is not a part of it. I don't think you're saying that. I think you're saying that you could certainly make an argument for the moves that he's making to pull us away.
He made the move because he knew that probably Warsh was going to raise rates, which is going to put Britain and all of this money. I mean, this has to come down. We just have to figure out, these companies have to get ruined in order for this to be rebuilt, right? Unfortunately,
if you raise interest rates at this particular time, these guys are going to be in a world of hurt.
They're already in a world of hurt. It's already happening. If you just look everywhere, Forbes or look at what Jamie Dimon is saying. Jamie Dimon is gating people and cutting them off from money, and they're writing down all kinds of debt. The SEC is now investigating Apollo for fraud. The DOJ's instigated a probe into BlackRock. These guys, Blue Owl, they gated investors. This KKR, JP Morgan cut them off last month. Totally slashed their credit line. And you've got all of these companies out there that are, and I'm seeing it now. I'm looking at people's statements, like their personal investment portfolio, and I'm starting to see private credit being put in there by their advisors, which is, in my mind, is very, very, very wrong. That's very risky, and people aren't noticing it. They just see, this is something that provides me income. But if you're producing some kind of income for an investor, and now your cost of doing business has gone up because you're borrowing the money to give to those people, you're going to see a rug pull, and there's going to be a bag holder, and it's going to make MMTLP look like child's play.
Yeah, picnic.
So
interesting. Very interesting. All right.
Maybe next week we can talk about just that, and there'll be more stuff going on we could talk about, but we could just focus and just try to keep our conversation to finance and what are some of the mechanisms. And
let's do that next week. I threw you a curveball this week because I get fascinated by the history portion of it, but maybe next week we just talk about finance in general. That'd be fine, because I think the audience is interested in finance just as much as they are history. So it might work out.
It goes to where they live. I mean, people need to be able to afford stuff, and it's I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's we have to look at their investments and make sure they're in defensive mode to maybe capture what's still going to be growing. I mean, that's the other thing that's so finish with this, I promise. But when you have somebody, let's say, this actually came out of Goldman Sachs, that this is the biggest bubble since the railroad. And,
really?
and yeah, literally somebody said that. And then they're saying that but we can't let it pop just yet because we have all these IPOs. And we're talking about SpaceX, and we're talking about Anthropic, and and so in a way, it's like, when I saw that, I'm like, the very first thing I said, it's like he just admitted that all these things are under their control when it pops, right? So but there is some opportunity, but then it's going to look really bad, or get really bad, or it could get really bad. So we need to just, anybody who's got money in the market, I would just say, call it a second opinion. You don't have to. I'm not going to obligate anybody to work with me or to say that I'm your guy. That's up to you. But I will still do a second opinion, even if you're not planning on working with me. I think that it's important for people to know what's going on in their portfolios to a degree that, they're able to understand it. And I can make it simple, so.
Nice. I love it. You made it simple for me. The last thing I got to remind you is, if you're hungry and it's lunchtime, it's Moe's Pizza.
Moe's Pizza.
You've been to Moe's Pizza with me.
We're having some pizza, learning about Cuba.
That's right. God owns the place. He just works there. Any kind of event that you have planned, banquet space available for birthday parties, anniversaries, political meetings, Bible studies, you name it. The Mike Johns family, Mike and Brenda, absolutely fantastic. Moe's Pizza out in Washington, Missouri, at the corner of Grand and 5th Street in Washington. As I like to say, it's a landmark in Washington, Missouri. Get there. That's all I got for you today, everybody. Rick, thanks a ton, brother. I really appreciate you. Sorry for being a little bit late today.
That's okay.
That was definitely Isaiah's fault. He's not here to defend himself. So
right.
if you're interested in Rick, let me give you one more shout out, Rick. If you want to get a hold of Rick, Carrington Financial, yourcaringadvisor.com. You can reach Rick at 314-671-0525. I'm just not a person who lies about business. I remember working for people, Rick, and I didn't really like their product. I would immediately quit. I don't think you can be a good salesman unless you like the product. I sell you because of what you've done for me. I sell you because of what you did for us. You said simple moves too. We're not wealthy people. So you just made a couple simple moves on my wife's 401k. It jumps up, makes her happy, which makes me happy, which makes me like you even more. Rick Babitz, 314-671-0525. We'll see you next Tuesday, my friend. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
You got it. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on the Robb Carter Show.